a beam shot out from the tip of a shovel. Its owner, Alan, the gem miner, was shocked to discover this, which happened exactly 100 years after the first dig began. This discovery could lead to him unearthing more gems, and thus he made the beam-driven mining system. Elsewhere, a woman is being forced by a group of bandits to go with them. One of the old men smirks upon laying hands on her soft hands. They remind him to be gentle with her since she has 1,000,000 gold coins of bounty on her head. Meanwhile, Alan is inside a mine. He looks at the fine gem in his possession and is in awe by how exquisite it is. He got carried away by digging gems, and he didn't realize that it has been 100 years since he last returned to the surface. He wonders if the people who used to buy his gems are long dead. With this, he realizes that he needs to start again and rebuild his ties from scratch. He also needs to start contemplating about having an heir given his age. As he continues to dig, he hears a woman's voice shouting for help and coming from the other side of the forest. The woman is begging her captors to let her go. They are telling her to surrender so she won't be harmed since the Chancellor wants her uninjured. Just then, Alan appears and screams at the thugs to unhand the woman. The bandits get surprised by his presence, demanding to know who he is. He introduces himself. He demands that they let the woman go, intending to help her, just what his father taught him, that miners are supposed to help those who are in need. He then points his shovel at them, threatening that he will use it against them if they don't release the girl. The three bandits laugh at him, calling him pathetic for trying to fight them when he's alone and just a gem miner. One of the bandits raises his sword against him and pushes him to give up his gems and hide away in the mines again if he wants to live longer. The bandit tells him that the boss used to be a holy knight and he will surely beat him. Alan assesses the man in front of him and can tell that his sword strokes are razor sharp, and the fact that he is a former holy knight seems like it wasn't a bluff at all. The woman tells him to run and forget about her, since it looks like he isn't going to stand a chance against his prowess. The man grips the woman tightly, commenting that she is such a noble person after giving the miner a warning. Hearing her kind words, Alan can tell that she has a pure heart like a gem. He plans on securing her safety above all else, and protecting her comes first. He then grips his shovel, and to everyone's shock, he vanishes along with the woman. Elsewhere, Alan and the woman get transported to another part of the forest. However, he even dragged the boss with him, who is incredulous about being in a portal. Confused, the woman asks where they are. Alan replies that they are in his cabin halfway up from the mountain. The boss is shocked to hear this, since he didn't expect him to have a teleportation ability. Alan explains that with his shovel, he can dig through space itself to go to a spot he will choose. He informs the boss that he is stuck mid-spatial jump and that he is wedged in the miner's rift. The woman is surprised to know that miners could use magic. The boss asks how he will pull himself out of the rift, but the miner just ignores him. At least, he could still feel his legs and think how to pull himself out to get the woman and Alan's gems. The two settle inside Alan's cabin, while the boss is still lodged inside the rift. The woman thanks the miner for rescuing her from the bandits. He questions why the bandits were after her. She replies that her name is Letty, and that she is the first princess and the rightful heir of the Rostiel kingdom. Alan just accepts her story and calmly sips his coffee. Letty is surprised that he easily believes her, and the man replies that he has no reason not to. Looking at her closely, he can see that she radiates nobility and the elegance of royalty. Everything about her screams princess. She bursts into tears upon hearing his words, touched that he looks at her deeply. She tells him to address her as Letty instead of calling her princess. He refuses to do it since their status are worlds apart. She retorts that he saved her life, and so calling her by her first name should be fine. She asks for his age, and he simply tells her that he is 10 this year. Letty smiles at his reply, thinking that he is messing with her since it would be impossible. Dwarves only live up to 15, and so it's hard to believe that he is 10. Dismissing her statement, he asks why a princess like her is worth a bounty of 100,000 gold. Wearing a brave expression on her face, she states that her kingdom is under the threat of being ruined. A few days ago, her father passed away from the Rostiel plague, and she was left in the care of the king's most trusted chancellor, Zell. Until she comes to the right age and inherits the throne, Zell will take care of her and the kingdom. But the truth is, she discovered that Zell is a demon disguising as a human. She witnessed how the demon slew her father using his dark magic. After that day, everyone in the palace was brainwashed by Zell's dark magic, and she was the only one who knew the truth and escaped. He let her live to witness her despair, and now wants to marry her to become the rightful heir to the crown. Because of this, she keeps running away from her captors, afraid that the demon will have a way to steal her kingdom. As more tears form in her eyes, she states that the true king of the grasslands must be brave, wise, and kind to all. She reveals that she is on a mission to find the 7 orbs that can defeat Zell. She then shows him the yellow orb in her possession, which is their nation's hidden treasure and passed down to her. The boss is in utter shock when he sees the national treasure. He begins to think if she is really the real princess. While the two are busy talking, he slowly tries to remove himself from the rift, and he can feel that he can almost pull himself out. Meanwhile, Alan eyes the yellow orb on the table. It is a magic gem refined from the legendary rainbow. Letty is thrilled to hear that he knows about something that only royals know. Alan reveals that he knows everything about the yellow orb since he was the one who mined it. Down the mine, he encountered the beast guarding the rainbow vein. The beast's scales were shining with refracted light. After blocking its rainbow breath attack, he struck it down with his shovel and claimed the legendary vein. The two find his story impossible since that happened 200 years ago. He agrees that this happened a long time ago but didn't realize that the gems he mined became national treasures. Additionally, if he gathers all of them, he can help protect and save the kingdom. If the 7 orbs are all collected and united, their true power will awaken and any wish can be granted. Letty's wish is to banish Zell and punish him for all his wrongdoings. The princess sighs since she is in a grave situation right now. The chancellor put a bounty on her head to prevent her from gathering all the orbs. He accused her of pretending to be the princess of the kingdom. He even made someone stand in as her so no one will believe her story. However, Alan counters this, saying that he believes in her. A smile creeps on her face upon realizing that there is at least one person who knows her truth. Just then, the boss finally releases himself from the rift, offended that they have been ignoring him all this time. His evil laugh reverberates, telling the miner that it is time to show him who's the boss. Alan finds him quite impressive since he escaped the rift on his own, noting that it is all because he was a former knight. With this, the boss leaps outside and tells him that they should fight outside. The bandit thinks it will be beneficial for him and his actions won't be restricted. He smirks, thinking that he can finally attain the bounty, the gems, and the orbs all for himself. Feeling greedy, he challenges the miner to a duel. Accepting the challenge, Alan tells the princess to step back and maintain a safe distance. He now has a duty to protect her and the gems. The bandit lunges at him with his magic. Alan concentrates and gathers power at the tip of his shovel. A bright light covers his weapon. He then fires it towards the bandit's direction and deploys a shovel counter barrier to protect himself. The bandit is in disbelief at the amount of power his opponent holds. Alan doesn't hold back and fires his wave cannon, releasing an insane amount of power towards his enemy. In the end, the bandit was defeated and he inadvertently dug through the entire mountain. Letty is so impressed after seeing his magnificent spell. She asks what kind of training he underwent to develop such power. He replies that the wave cannon from his shovel isn't magic. It is just the mining wave energy wielded from the concept of the shovel and digging. The princess seems confused, but nonetheless thankful to him. The bandit remains immobile on the ground. This is the start of the fateful encounter of the miner and the princess. Letty asks him to work with her and gather the 7 orbs across the world. Without hesitation, he accepts the offer. Much to her surprise, she warns him that it won't be an easy job. In fact, it would be very dangerous, and so it is alright if he thinks it over for now. However, he is very decided and notes that danger for him is normal, just like another day inside the mines. In addition, he can't accept the fact that the orbs he dug 20 years ago are scattered across the land. Hearing his resolve, she is thankful that he will go with her on the quest. If they restore the peace to her homeland, she will reward him with any wish he has. He thinks deeply if there is anything that he wants. His mind then wanders to someone who would inherit his family's legacy and the mines. With this, he bluntly tells her that he wants an heir. He suggests that they put up a notice in her kingdom for a successor and they might find someone suitable. Suddenly, she blushes, thinking that he is asking for a child successor. He agrees but looks at it as someone he can adopt and teach the basics. But the princess misunderstands this as him asking her to make a child together. He then asks if his request is quite difficult, but she stands by her words and swears that she will do anything that he desires if he successfully gathers the 7 orbs. She admits that she lacks some experience in the field, but she will prepare herself. He agrees with her sentiment, adding that it is important that they practice different methods of recruitment. Extremely embarrassed, the princess exclaims that she is overwhelmed by how the situation is developing. Clueless to the misunderstanding, he asks if she has other belongings that she packed aside from the orb. She replies that she left all of her possessions in the kingdom when she escaped. Hearing this, he proposes that they get ready now, packing things for the two of them. As she is preparing the things she needs, she finds it difficult to pack everything neatly inside her luggage. The miner advises that she leave about 20% of space open so they have space for new items that they will find along the road. Looking around the cabin, she finds it interesting that miners use so many tools. He replies that centuries ago, he also wielded pickaxes and drills. However, digging deep in the mines, one can't carry much, and he realized that he should just rely on the versatility of a single shovel, making it the most important tool for him. Seeing her look closely at the shovel with bright eyes, Alan offers that she take one with her too during their travel. She excitedly grabs the tiny red shovel that he hands her, which is essentially for kids. Alan studies the map and asks her where the locations of the orbs could be. However, she admits that she is as clueless as him about where the orbs could be found. It was a reckless act, but the orbs were scattered in different places like beneath the seas, deep in the deserts, or above the clouds, where no humans could reach. With this, Alan decides to use the map and narrow down the possible locations of the orbs. Then, he will use the power of his shovel and the miner's detection art to pinpoint the exact sites of the orbs. It is a great help that he was the one who dug all the treasures, and it will be easier for him to find the other treasure using the energy of the yellow orb. With this, he uses the shovel to pinpoint where they should go. She looks at the direction where the shovel is pointing and is incredulous that it is inside the miner's house. He disagrees with her, saying that they should head behind the shed just past the rocky ridge. They are blocked by the rocky ridge, but behind it lies the ruins of a castle destroyed when the great war between humans and demons wiped out an entire kingdom. It feels like the orb should be inside the Lifton castle. They study the map and how they will reach the Lifton castle. Since she is still at large, they should look out for the high chance that the Chancellor's men are waiting on the other end to capture her. Since there is no escape route for them, she is ready to face the danger that might be waiting for them. However, he assures her that if there is no path, he will make one for her. They continue to strategize. They have decided that they should head along the coast to get to the old castle since it will be faster than heading straight through the mountain range. In this way, they can also get away from the pursuers faster. She looks at him strangely, stating that it will be difficult for him to make that new path, since roads aren't made easily and it would usually take years to build new roads. He understands her worry, but he points out that it will not be hard for him since he is used to digging all his life. Dismissing the princess's worries, he grips his shovel and points it against the rocky ridge. He shoves the boulder and the small movement creates an explosion, surprising the princess. Alan has actually dug a tunnel using his shovel with just one quick move. With this, they now have easy access inside the castle ruin. Letty is so impressed with his work and that he managed to create an enormous tunnel in just a snap. Confused, she asks how he did it. He reveals that he dedicated himself to training. At first, a single meter of digging a tunnel took him 10 minutes. After training for a year, he has cut the time to 5 minutes. He repeatedly did this until it only took him a second to dig a tunnel. He has basically reached his limit since any faster than that is impossible. However, he ignored the world's law and trained more to achieve a tunnel in microseconds. After thorough practice, he has finally mastered the ultimate excavation speed, which is even faster than sound. A power that makes everything possible is the shovel's true purpose. Hearing this, the princess falls to her knees, overwhelmed. She realized that the cannon earlier that paved the mountain wasn't magic, and it was really the power of the shovel. She starts to uncontrollably tremble with the information. She mumbles how easily he defied the world's law and transcended it all. Enlightened, she resolved to give every knight a shovel that they can use when protecting the kingdom during threats of invasion. She now claims that shovels are like holy relics that can replace other weapons. Alan reminds her that he is a miner, so that is why it seems easy for him to use a shovel. However, the princess still insists that other weapons like swords could never perform such incredible feats. Enthusiastically, she raises her shovel near her ear, claiming that she can hear it singing to her. She suggests that they should rename their kingdom from Rostiel to Chevelia. With Alan's incredible power, she feels like she was born again. She now carries a different air of confidence and hope that she can reclaim her kingdom with the help of Alan. Looking at her so engrossed with her shovel, Alan comments that royals are indeed peculiar beings. They walk through the entrance of the tunnel. Letty can't stop herself from babbling about her shovel, expressing that she is filled with heroic power just by holding it. However, Alan tells her that a shovel is nothing more than a laborer's tool. Letty opposes him, saying that handling a shovel is the height of royal refinement, and she is considering adding it to the royal family precepts next generation. Flushing, she also adds that as a soon-to-be mother, she needs to learn the proper way of the shovel. Confused, he asks her what she means by it. Stammering, she explains that he wanted a successor, so she will prepare for it. Misunderstanding her again, he entrusts her with the recruitment of his successor once the peace in her kingdom is restored. She promises to make him a healthy baby. He finds it odd that she put it that way but realizes that royalty and commoners must have different cultures, hence her words. He warns her that she should stop saying, "make a baby," or else it would cause her unnecessary trouble. Confused, she thinks he wants to keep it between them. He replies that she should just change how she phrases things. Misunderstanding him, she thinks that he wants to have a secret love code with her. Decided, she states that from now on, making a successor together will be called shoveling. Alan looks at her, confused, finding it odd that recruiting a successor will be called shoveling. Stammering, she explains that since it is collaborative work with him, they should use a term that will resonate with him. He agrees with her and thinks that it shouldn't be a problem as long as he gets a successor. Soon, they manage to exit the tunnel. After journeying to the other side, the misunderstanding between them only gets deeper. In a flashback, a young knight named Kazu overheard the discussion of the other knights about her, calling her weak and a handful even though she came from a noble line. Even her father saw her as a failure, and so she strives so hard to become a knight that her father would be proud of. The princess heard that she was not very good at using a sword. However, she wanted to make her personal guard. Kazu was confused why she was chosen since she wasn't really talented in duels. Letty pointed out that her eyes shone brighter than anyone else's, especially when she wielded a sword. She was sure that one day, she would become the finest knight in the continent. Since she is a princess, her words are absolute and she had no choice but to follow her wishes. With this, Letty entrusts her life to the knight. Appreciating the princess' trust in her, she swore to give her absolute loyalty and resolve. She then worked hard to rise among all knights to deserve to stand next to the princess. Back in the forest, the two can see the border of Rosteel. Observing, they can see that there are knights guarding the border. She comments that if the knights weren't on the way, he could have used his shovel to blast the border. Alan reminds her to plan carefully. Besides, they now have enough intel to plan their assault. He contemplates if the knights could recognize her, and it will put her in a more dangerous situation. She replies that the knights probably view her as the fake princess. Suddenly, he points out that something is happening near the border. He can see that the guards are fighting against a female knight with red hair. Hearing this, Letty can immediately point out that the woman is none other than Kazu. She finds it impressive that he can see the fight happening near the border. Alan admits that he has good eyesight as a miner. With this job, he should spot a gleaming gem even from 10 kilometers away. Good eyesight is a miner's natural ability. With urgency, she tells him that they need to help her friend since she is being attacked by 3 knights at once. As she prepares to run, the miner stops her and states that they need an alternative. Meanwhile, near the border, Kazu is thrown to the ground with brute force. As a knight, she committed a grave crime of desertion that is punishable by death. She grips her sword tighter and lunges at the knight again. Judging by her swordsmanship skills, he can't believe that she was chosen as the princess retainer. On top of this, she is committing an unforgivable sin now. The king is dead, a false princess has appeared, and the real princess is still mourning, and yet she is committing treason. Huffing, she reveals that the real reason she deserted was to protect the princess. In a flashback, Letty was incredulous that 1,000,000 gold coins was put on her head as a bounty for posing as the real princess. This move was worthy of execution. Kazu bowed before her, assuring her that she would protect her no matter what happens. The princess smiled at her devotion, but the loyal knight sensed something in her eyes. That night, Kazu was patrolling the palace halls when she overheard Zell and the princess talking. Zell was laughing menacingly that the real princess fled with the treasure. He found it delightful that Letty was resisting him. He ordered that they put a bounty on her head so she would be caught in no time. The fake princess should enjoy her life in the castle as much as she wants. Soon, he would not be needing her. Kazu was shocked to hear their conversation. It meant that the princess she was serving now was fake all along. At present, the knights are confused with her goal to protect the real princess. She doesn't bother to explain anymore since time is running and she needs to find the real Letty. She can't stomach the fact that somewhere out there, the princess is alone and lonely by herself. With this in mind, she grips her sword tightly and lunges at the knights. Determined, she swings her sword with brute force. However, it doesn't match the amount of power that her opponent has, sending her weapon flying from her hands. The knight mocks her skills, saying that she is not enough to be the princess' personal guard. Kazu recalls the time she devoted herself to training. She aimed to be worthy of being chosen by the princess. She gave everything she had, yet she still failed. Left with no will, she remains unmoving under the knight's mercy. The man's sword is about to strike her when a violent force sends the knight flying to the ground. Kazu is surprised to see a shovel on the ground. Meanwhile, Alan is targeting the knights using his shovel. When he was still under the mines and digging the gems, he encountered another formidable monster and used his shovel as a close combat weapon. He then realized after that he can use the tool as a long-range weapon as well. It allows him to pinpoint at his targets, which is handy for saving comrades during chaotic battles. Seeing the knights leap into the air, the princess asks why it is so. The miner explains that the shovel draws power from the ground, and so it causes it to lift the knight standing on the surface. Although she doesn't follow everything, she exclaims how incredible Alan is. Meanwhile, Kazu is shocked about what just happened. Hasn't recovered yet from shock, she sees the princess running to her side and waving excitedly. He inspects her wounds and figures that they need to tend to them properly later. She adds that her surviving against 3 opponents is both fortunate and impressive. Kazu looks at her closely and starts to cry. She is now seeing the gentle expressions that she missed. She is sure that she is the genuine one, and her search is finally over. After realizing this, she hugs Letty tightly, relieved that she is safe and well. The princess feels the same, grateful that her loyal bodyguard survived the ordeal. The princess keeps saying the word scoop, and so Kazu asks what she means by it. Letty has decided to use the word to mean ultimate. Just then, Alan appears and reminds her that scoop is a noun and is a shovel. The knight is shocked to see the unfamiliar man and demands to know his identity. Alan respectfully introduces himself, informing her that the princess hired him as her bodyguard in her absence. Kazu immediately doubts his intentions, but Letty defends Alan, stating that he is a good man. She then keeps saying scoops as if she is under a spell. Worried, Kazu pleads for her to get back to her senses. The princess excitedly tells her that she witnessed the power of the shovel, and it transcends even the holy knights. With this, Kazu grips her sword and raises it against Alan for brainwashing her princess. She leaps toward his direction, and suddenly she is submerged in a puddle of mud. She tries so hard to remove herself from the mud but couldn't do so. Alan activates his mud therapy and explains that it can relax Kazu's mind, heal her wounds, and ease her fatigue. This way, he can talk to her calmly later. Letty praises his ability and points out to her bodyguard how capable and reliable the miner is. Kazu lowers her head and cries. She finds herself pathetic for failing to save the princess. No matter how she tries, she will never be a holy knight. She needs to stop deluding herself that it will happen. The moment she was born as a woman, she knew that nothing would work out for her. Suddenly, Alan reacts, saying that the last strike she unleashed against her opponent was an excellent attack. It's not as if she lacks talent. What she needs right now is mining. The bodyguard is confused about what he means. Just then, an army of royal knights arrives to capture them after defying the border rules. Seeing the imminent danger, Kazu urges the princess to flee to safety. Letty refuses to leave her behind. Alan tells them there's no reason to run and raises his shovel against the enemies. He emphasizes to Kazu that talent is mined and developed. Whether she picks up a sword or shovel, the right technique is what counts. She can be strong like him if she puts faith in herself and keeps pushing. She starts crying, her heart pounding. He then fires his shovel power toward the enemies. The impact sends them into a sea of mud therapy. After some time, everything will go back to normal, so the mud just doubles as a restoration system. In addition, the mud will also ease the body and mind of the knights. Looking at the miner with determined eyes, Kazu swears that she will be strong like him. Kazu bursts out that Alan's shovel is an odd one. First of all, a shovel doesn't fire plasma beams. She heard that he even defeated a retired knight using solely his shovel. She asks if he doesn't have any knightly background at all. Letty chimes in, expressing that the miner is a lot more capable than former knights, even though he has no other experience other than mining gems. Kazu breathes a sigh of relief. It seems like she still has a chance to become a holy knight someday. She also makes it clear that she still doesn't trust him fully. Though the princess seems to trust him, she is still doubtful of his intentions and will continue to observe him until she is sure that he can be trusted. He agrees with her and properly addresses her as Knight Kazu. It disarms her, so she tells him not to address her like that. The group then checks in using 2 adjacent rooms, 205 and 206. Blushing, the princess volunteers to share the room with the miner and Kazu gets the other room all by herself. The bodyguard looks at her judgingly, noting that she must not be herself again. Alan agrees with her since sharing a room with the princess doesn't make any sense. She commends him for having a normal mind after all. She asks how about their promise of shoveling together. He looks at her confused, thinking what she could mean by it since she has been using the term for just about anything. He clarifies what she could mean by it, and she answers that she is referring to their teamwork. Still clueless, he asks if she means the physical labor kind of shoveling. This almost sends her to the edge, and she nearly dies of embarrassment. Alan offers that they start making a now hiring apprentices sign. Blushing, she tells him that they can start practicing digging that uses a lot of their bodies. He agrees with her and mentions that they can practice in the backyard, which shocks the princess. Alan replies that shovels are meant to be used outside as well as digging. Although nervous, she agrees with him and promises to give it her all. Meanwhile, Kazu is watching them closely and feels like what they're doing is highly suggestive. In the backyard, Letty makes him wait as she prepares herself. A bright light then envelops her, and after a beat, she transforms. wearing a short uniform. She states that since she will be his student, it is only fitting that she wears the uniform of the Royal Academy. Curious, he asks if she can use magic, but she clarifies that her dress itself can transform into whatever they wish. Seeing this, Kazu panics since the uniform is shorter than it should be. The princess thought that shorter is preferred since it is going to make the digging easier. Alan finds the dress impressive since she can change her outfit in any way possible. This can help her infiltrate using different disguises. Meanwhile, Letty is still hung up on how her outfit can help with the digging. She contemplates if removing it will make their job easier. Kazu vehemently opposes this. Alan also chimes in, saying that she doesn't need go bare while digging. Turning beet red, she follows his instruction and keeps her outfit on. Alan then shows her how the digging goes. She switches to the standard uniform, while she is appreciating his strong, veiny arms. He starts digging while she is engrossed in her worldly thoughts. He can see that the soil is healthy looking. He continues to discuss the basics of the digging, showing the princess the tricks on how to shovel properly. Letty is confused since it seems to her that he is just digging normally. Then, it dawns on her everything that is happening. She contemplates a bit and thinks that he is teaching her the right way of digging. She is the ground and the shovel is the miner. The bodyguard tells her to get a hold of herself while Alan stays clueless about what is happening. He then grabs Letty's hand and shows her the right way of holding a shovel. She smiles and digs into her mind the correct way to hold the tool, stating that she will never forget the moment. Alan then instructs her to drive it in with a strong thrust, which causes another misunderstanding. The princess starts digging in the soil while the miner patiently monitors her progress. He urges her to keep digging until she hits a vein. Their conversation about the digging continues while Kazu is confused and weirded out at the same time. The next morning, the group arrives at the Elven Forest. It is a centuries-old sanctuary where the elves are dwelling. Beyond the forest lies the old shortcut to Lifton. Without the permission from the elves, it is impossible for them to enter the forest, and so they need to take a detour. She shifts her gaze to the princess, who seems at a loss and hasn't moved on from the lessons last night. Ever since they came back from the digging practice, she has been unfocused and so out of it. Alan prepares his things, noting that he will get the permission from the elves' elder himself. Kazu comments that he seems familiar with the elder. The miner confirms this, mentioning that they have been allies since he offered the scorching ruby that sealed him. Kazu exclaims when she hears this, since Ifrit is a top-tier spirit. More so, when she discovers that he was already in communication with the elder even 40 years ago. Alan then activates his miner's spatial leap and quickly vanishes. Just then, Letty wakes up from her daydream and looks for Alan. Kazu informs her that the miner went to the elven village to talk with the elder and asked for permission to pass through the forest so they can reach the Lifton castle. Letty panics upon realizing that the miner went in alone, and so she buries the shovel deep into the soil and asks for the blessings of the great excavation god. Weirded out, Kazu can only listen as the princess blabbers about the new religion that revolves around the shovel. She also plans to change the name of the kingdom to the Holy Scoop Republic. Although she absolutely makes no sense, Kazu can only support her decision. Meanwhile, Alan finally arrives inside the forest. He is shocked to discover that the whole forest is ruined. The trees have withered, the river runs black, and he can see no one. He wonders what happened to the lush forest he once knew and often visited. While looking for elves, he encounters a horrifying-looking monster. He faces the monster and recognizes it as the Black Beast. It was the one probably killing the elven forest. The horrifying monster leaps in his direction and bares its sharp teeth. However, to his surprise, the monster flees with a clear purpose of where it is going. Somewhere distant from him, he can hear a faint sound of water and the scent of trees nearby. With this, he can tell that the Black Beast's goal is the elven village. With urgency, he follows the path of the monster and raises his shovel. If it is a normal beast, digging would be fast enough to reach it, but for a pest harming the forest, burial is best. He raises his shovel and puts a lot of force into it before digging it into the soil. The impact makes a large hole in the ground and the water starts seeping out from it. He successfully buries the monster 10,000 meters deep, but to his surprise, he stumbles upon an elf bathing nearby. He apologizes to her for interrupting her bathing. He promises to take responsibility for the water source. Later, and now clothed, the elf introduces herself as Fiona. Alan also introduces himself. His name sounds familiar to her, and she wonders where she heard it before. Alan asks for the High Elder, Arnak. The elf is surprised to hear the name of her ancestor, the King of the Silver Tree. She then realizes that the man before her is the legendary gem miner from the story of her ancestor 100 years ago. She finds this thrilling since someone from history is in front of her. Alan realizes that a lot has changed after he came back to the surface after 100 years. Meanwhile, Letty and Kazu are still waiting for Alan in the forest. Back in the elven village, Alan is busy looking for a source of water to replace the one he accidentally destroyed. Fiona then leads him to the elder's grave. She tells him that all of the elves who have passed away lay in the land of the World Tree. Seeing his confusion, she narrates that during the War of Extinction, many of her kin were wiped out by the demons who tried to invade the sacred elven forest, noting that the black monster took their lives. With this, Fiona is the only elf left in the forest and the others fled. As the remaining descendant, she can use a little spirit magic called the Wooden Branch Spear. Alan reminisces about the time when his good friend was still alive. He was always insistent that he marry his sister and take her as his bride to make him one of them. In this way, he wouldn't have to dig mines anymore. However, he chose his noble job instead and went on his way. While praying at the elder's grave, he wished that he should have waited a bit longer before returning to the mine. Fiona looks at him appreciatively and thanks him for going to the graves with her. Since the other elves left the village, she has no one to visit the graves with her. He assures her that she has nothing to worry about since he has already defeated the black beast that is responsible for killing her kin. She is shocked to hear this and has to clarify what he meant. He reiterates that he had buried it earlier 10,000 meters underground. She is in disbelief at his revelation, especially since he is so nonchalant about it. To make it clearer, he even projects the beast using his shovel. Fiona confirms that it is the monster that killed most of the elves. With the monster now gone, the sacred forest should recover soon, and the elves who have fled the village can now go back and resume their lives on their own land. Tears flow from Fiona's face. As the remaining descendant of Arnak, she failed to defeat the black monster that has plagued their land for the longest. She reveals that there wasn't just one black monster, there are lots of them inside the elven forest. She isn't sure why, but they kept crawling out from the depths of the earth. To protect her, her only friend, the water spirit, Dean, died to make sure she'll survive. With determination in his gaze, the miner grips his shovel and marches down towards the monsters. Fiona tries to stop him, warning that it is dangerous to leave the grave. The power of the ancient barriers prevents the monsters from attacking, and once he steps out, his safety won't be assured. He agrees with her since Arnek's holy presence still lingers in the place, which explains why some greenery and sources of water remain in that part of the elven forest. However, this doesn't solve anything unless every last black monster is destroyed. Soon, the entirety of the forest will die, and it will be too late for them to save it and bring it back to its original glory. Still, Fiona refuses to put his life in danger in exchange for the survival of the forest. With conviction, Alan tells her that since she is the descendant of his best friend, he will do everything in his power to save her home. She is like a niece to him and a part of his family. This heartwarming message brings tears to her eyes. It has been a while since she last had someone to consider family. Alan rushes towards the horde of black monsters. In one swift attack using his shovel, he annihilates the monsters, creating a large explosion inside the forest. After eliminating the beasts, he goes back to Fiona's side, telling her to call him uncle from now on. She is touched by this and asks how he managed to defeat the black beasts in a single attack. He nonchalantly replies that he just used his technique to dig a moat in attacking the monsters, which stupefied the elf. He then buried them at the bottom of the moat he just created, which also serves now as the new source of water in the village. Now that the moat is complete, he starts to think of another way to improve the village and thinks that the painting in Fiona's house should be enough. He then tells her that he has a great idea of how to rebuild the elf village. He suggests that they develop an elf castle. Now that they have a moat to stop the intruders from entering, they need to level the inner ground for the castle. For this to happen, he will alter the forest and asks for Fiona's trust. With this, he raises his shovel and starts digging again, unleashing his minor construction power. Another explosion erupts in the village, producing an elevated ground for the castle. Next, he builds the walls around the plateau. He leaps and then forms a blueprint of the elf castle inside his head. With this, he starts digging until his design is realized. Meanwhile, Letty and Kazu feel a sudden tremor on the ground. The source is coming from the forest. Letty expresses worry for the miner. Suddenly, the sound finally stops and they hear thumping coming their way. Worried for her safety, Kazu shields the princess from the figures coming their way. The sound of thumping continues and it starts to get closer, making its way to them. The knight gulps, nervous but determined to protect her master. Just then, they see Alan being carried by human-like shovels while sitting on his throne, much to their shock. Alan created the miner soldiers by infusing the soil of the elf forest with his mining power. They carried the ladies to their destination easily, as each soldier had the strength of 10 men, and there were now 99 of them. Now, there is a new army, a trench thousands of meters deep, and a wall meters high. He even modeled the gate for villagers, after Rostiel's fortress. While Kazu had no idea what he was talking about, he went on about how it isn't enough. After all, What would happen if a swarm of dragons suddenly flew at the forest? It's practically impossible, but he argues that one must always be prepared. In fact, he once came across a swarm of ancient dragons while on one of his expeditions. One beast is easy to deal with, but even he had trouble fighting a whole legion. For this reason, he invented the offensive shovel fortress, armed with a 30-meter tower that can shoot down dragons and withstand Knight-class flame breaths. It detects enemies and automatically fires surface-to-air mini-wave cannons at them. The battle this was last used in was in the legendary Jewel War in the depths of hell. Kazu finally speaks up and complains about not understanding anything he's talking about. Alan then says that he used the experience and technology from the Jewel War to build the new home of the elves, Castle Elf. Before them was an impregnable and grand fortress, safe from ground and air attacks. The knight couldn't believe it, as they arrived in the forest just a few moments ago. It took him 2 hours to create the soldiers, which is still too fast for a normal person. The trench provided an abundant supply of high-quality stone, mainly for building materials. Even if a holy war breaks out, this area of the forest is sure to be safe. Fiona's head popped up, and she cautiously asked who the new people were. As such, Alan introduces them to each other, and Letty's face is covered with a smile when she sees the real-life elf. She excitedly grabs the girl's hands and basically gushes over the honor of meeting her. The princess gestures to Kazu, who's dazed from the unbelievable reveals, and the elf is then introduced as a niece. Given his relationship with her father, he basically considers her his family. Now her turn to clear her confusion, Fiona asks about the royal's relationship with her uncle. Unfortunately, this only leads to even more misunderstandings, as Letty says that the two of them are in a shoveling relationship. Her bright gaze isn't enough for the girl, who asks the miner what she means. While he can't explain either, the princess then hugs her tight, fulfilling her dreams of befriending an elf. It was a fairly strange situation, but Alan couldn't help but smile at them. On the other hand, Kazu was busy recounting all the things he did in the span of 2 hours. She has no idea anymore and questions just what a shovel really is, and is suddenly told by her liege that she must excavate common sense to understand. Again, the miner tells her to ignore the young woman. In the end, a shovel is basically the power that pierces through the logic of the world. Just like that, Letty invites Fiona to talk all night. According to Kazu, the most important thing about going through a dungeon is the ability to fight bravely and without any fear. Alan disagrees and says she's all wrong. To him, the most vital point of dungeon crawling is safety. Letty leads the way and says the deepest part they're searching for is right ahead. The radar and his shovel confirmed this without a doubt, and he moved forward to reach the sacred treasure. Eventually, they find a lone pedestal holding the second magic orb. They were in the elf castle just half a day ago. Fiona was troubled and wanted them to rest for at least more than a day. Unconvinced, the miner promised to be back once he finishes his mission. The soldiers will be there to protect her, but don't really offer companionship like they do. Just then, she's told to look behind her. Water was moving around from below the bridge, and the humans gasped in awe of what they were witnessing. Even more surprising is how the water climbed and pooled on top of the bridge. Fiona couldn't believe her eyes. Dean, who was erased by the black beast while protecting her, was now back alive. The elf rushed forward and hugged her friend, unable to hold back her tears as she asked how this was possible. Since the black beast was sealed, her energy was freed from inside it. The elf remembers how Alan defeated all the enemies without sparing a single one. While he's glad that her friends are back, it all really is thanks to his kind efforts. Reunited with her loved one, the girl now confidently waves them goodbye, thanking and wishing them a safe journey. Based on the map, the group should reach the old castle of Lifton, if they keep their pace. If the second magic orb wasn't so close, Letty would have loved to live in the elven castle forever. Alan unexpectedly says that doing that would be bad for Fiona, a statement they don't really understand. He then asked the princess if she taught the little girl odd things about shoveling. Apparently, she visited his bedroom last night and crept in with a cautious and trembling voice. She came to tell him something, asking him to look at her bountiful shovel. Her uncle is silent for a few beats, until he blankly questions what exactly she was doing and tells her to get clothed. As she'll be left alone in the huge castle he made, Letty advised her to rebuild the village by participating in shoveling, which she said he'll understand. Now, the princess reasons that the two aren't related by blood, but Alan just lightly scolds her for instigating a girl, who he considers his family. The royal is left silent. Letty says Alan is not some person a princess like her can keep to herself. No matter how great he is, they'll eventually reach the elf castle beneath the world tree, and everyone will see the great miracles he performs with his shovel. In other words, he's destined to become a legend. This is why just being by his side is more than enough. for someone like her. He interrupts her tearful confession with something he's been meaning to say. The young lady thinks too highly of him and his shovel, and Kazu firmly agrees. All he is a miner, and as much of a human as she is. There's no need for her to worship him like a god. While the personal guard couldn't wrap her head around the conversation, her princess wiped her tears with a smile, seemingly understanding how he simply is himself. Unfortunately, this leads to the wrong lesson, with her deciding to still worship him as he is. She's made a shovel statue, and has appointed Kazu as the Grand Master of the Shovel Knights. Like before, her obsession with the excavating tool continued, perhaps even stronger, and Alan's frank statement felt completely wasted. After a while of traveling, they finally reached their destination, the plains where the ancient castle stands. The miner then raised his shovel, using it as a radar and detection tool. It somehow reacts to the magic orb, confirming that it is indeed inside. With that said, Kazu could also feel a sinister presence, even from a distance. As expected of the demon castle, which was the heart of the war, Letty gets ahead of herself, and suggests that Alan take it out from there with his beam. The guard is so worried that she actually wonders if it's possible, but to their surprise, he says that it cannot be done. Physically speaking, it'd be simply enough. But the real problem is the risk. He can use the shovel wave to blow the entire castle away in 1 second. However, what would they do if a monster inside is capable of reflecting or countering that power? As they doubt that such a being could even exist in this world, he says that he once encountered such an entity, which is also the most powerful he's faced. Its name is De Morgan, the overlord from the true anti-Genesis realm. Kazu is in disbelief as he says the name, which is basically a god in legends. Unfortunately, he can confirm that it does indeed exist, and can even reflect his beam. There are monsters that can rewrite the laws of the world at will. Asked how he overcame that situation, he projects the battle with his shovel, and basically says that he beat it with pure power. This makes Letty even more of a worshipper, who now prays in his name. It'd be one issue if he just had to worry about himself. With the two of them there, he has to make sure that their safety is secured before moving in. From the shovel driven deep into the ground, a screen showing different areas emerged. It was like a maze, constantly growing by the second. Since information gathering is essential for the raid, he's excavated the underground interior, and has already located the magic orb in the deepest part of the plains. The first floor is vast with narrow paths, nearly turning it into a labyrinth. As for the glowing spots on the map, they're alerts for monsters and traps inside. Even then, they can't simply let their guard down just yet. As a god-class monster might be concealing information, he has to take special measures. Alan drove his shovel deeper into the ground, which suddenly began to shake and flow like water in the raging sea. The two girls asked Alan if he's responsible for the sudden earthquake. Before he could answer, they noticed the areas in the map shifting and moving towards each other. Apparently, it was reflecting the construction work his shovel did to the underground maze. Now, all the trap points have been filled, and they're left with a straight line for a path. Taking it a step further, he adds some lighting and a direct entrance to the deepest level where their destination is. The miner gives the ground a few more taps, creating a straight track directly leading to the magic jewel. While the two joyfully walked forward, emphasizing the importance of safety, Kazu argues that commoners can't take his measures, even if they tried. Letty then suggests that her personal guard learn the art of safety construction, an endeavor he projects would take at least 2 years. With the princess' approval, he accepts and prepares a full shovel training set. The knight protests and tries to decline, but it's too late. She just found herself fully equipped with tools and armor. There was no getting out of it anymore. With all that said and done, what's left is entry into the dungeon where the jewel is. Back to the present, the three charged forward as a group. Kazu desperately whined and tried to convince herself that it was going to be okay. Despite her arguments, Alan tries to comfort her, saying the sword and the shovel share fundamentals. Through training, he plans to unearth the talent sleeping within her. His unexpected words stun her. While she declines the idea of being taught at first, his promise to make her as strong as him breaks her hesitation. With a red and embarrassed face, she accepts the offer, albeit threatening to back out if she doesn't see results. The group reaches their destination and finds themselves in a room filled with gold. It was fitting of a treasury, and on a pedestal at the very back was their goal. The true blue orb lay there, and its mystical glow made the viewers feel as if their souls were being cleansed. However, there was a bright yellow light shining blindingly above it. Alan tells Letty to stop before she gets too close to it. It has the same evil energy they felt from outside, and is similar to that of the undead. Just then, the light flashed even brighter, as if responding to his words. They stood their ground, wondering if it was a dweller of the labyrinth. the figure of a woman appeared, saying she liked perceptive humans. Her body continued to materialize, and a young woman soon appeared, identifying herself as Alice, King of the Undead. Her childlike appearance must not fool them. The sheer aura of her magic alone was enough to make their bones shake. Since it's been a long time since fools visited seeking the treasure, she decides to entertain them as a demon who governs death. The situation turns from bad to worse as the undead begin climbing out from the ground. Kazu was ready to risk her life to save the princess as usual, but Letty wasn't the least bit scared, and brightly saw it as an opportunity. While the king stared in confusion, she insists on showing non-humans the greatness of the shovel. The talk about the power of the shovel made Alice feel like she was being mocked. In response, she unleashes the power of her invincible new Lifton Legion of the Undead. The princess reacts to the name, but has no time to do anything. There were too many enemies, and the tight setting was simply disadvantageous to them. Since it's too cramped to fight an entire army, Alan walked forward, realizing that he had to remodel his flawed designs of the dungeon. Alice is confused as she's never seen such brazenness, but he just drove his shovel into the wall and ignored her underlings. The treasure and the enemies were all thrown away as his power began to work. Their surroundings move for a few moments, and he finally stops upon creating his desired space. While it was cramped earlier, the room nearly doubled in size, providing a lot of space for movement. The king is fairly intrigued by his abilities, and wonders if he used illusion magic, not knowing it's much stranger than that. Regardless, her lifelong ambition could finally be realized if she drains them of their life forces. Unwilling to let anyone take her precious orb, she wills her army forward, to turn her enemies into nourishment for her cause. As the undead charged in, Alan took his place to stand against them. Intending to help them rest in peace, he moves his shovel around in an odd pattern. While the enemies are confused by his movements, he gives one last stroke and summons a purifying light from his weapon. Graves appeared on the ground, laying rest to the disturbed undead. Alice was speechless and struggled to make sense of what just happened. In the blink of an eye, her legion was buried in a graveyard that covered the room. Like always, the miner performs a ridiculously unnatural feat. She calls to her subjects and screams their names one by one, but even those names were etched onto the gravestones of the spirits that are now in heaven. Such is the power of the shovel, which made absolutely no sense. With only the boss left, Alan orders the others to catch her as he has questions. This offends the king, who clicked her tongue in anger. The insolence of thinking that they could catch her filled her with pure rage. She tries to deliver them to their deaths, but one move from the miner, and she finds herself tied up and restrained by the excavating tool. Moving her body and using her magic felt impossible, and all she could do is whine about her astral form being bound by mere gardening equipment. Letty proudly stood with her flag, preaching the power of the almighty shovel. Alan questions the undead king's goal, as she's been talking about sacrifices since earlier. Was it perhaps tied to the mana jewel somehow? Despite her situation, she scoffs at the human who boldly demanded her answers. Just then, a flash of light erupted with Letty's power. With the red shovel in her hand, she touched the king's body, making her scream from a strong sensation. She couldn't understand what she was feeling, and worried about the devious expression on the plotting princess's face. Obviously, she was going to spread the word of the sacred shovel. Realizing what was about to happen, Alice commanded her to stay far away, but her screams just filled the room. She was tickled endlessly, and questioned how her astral body was being interfered with. The sight itself felt downright criminal to the onlookers, who had no choice but to wait. Soon enough, the undead king was on the ground, defeated and professing her love for the shovel. This makes Letty jump in triumph, thinking she spread the word of her faith to non-humans. Left so weak that she couldn't get off the ground, Alice noticed her sweat on the floor. They then interrupted her, and asked why she was guarding the blue orb in the first place. This is news to her, who was doing the exact opposite. Her duty is to curse the orb, and follow her contract with Rostiel's chancellor. The two women freeze in shock upon hearing this. Before they could react any further, a sinister energy shot up from the ground. The pressure and dark aura was unmistakable. Letty was now facing her life's greatest enemy again. Zell's dark magic roared at them. Breaking her pact and answering their questions only leads to Alice's death. As a demon, this end result was merely common sense. They realized that it isn't Zell's true body, but his magic from the black stone in the girl's head. She found it a pitiful way for her wretched life to end. With her kingdom of Lifton, everything was going to perish. The dark energy gathered around the orb, and at this rate, everything including the jewel was going to be swallowed by darkness. They called to Alan, begging to be saved like always. The Great War wiped Lifton from existence, but the royal lineage refused to fall. A much younger Alice watched the royal crown as she hugged her mother. She alone was going to be forced to endure and be protected by the crown of Vecna. The kingdom soon began to succumb and fall. Her name is shared with the undead king who once ruled. Seeing all this, the group wondered if it belonged to the lingering spirit of Alice. She's already died once and just returned. The girl found herself inside her tomb, wrapped with an oft but intricate fabric. Taking Vecna's crown, she carried her family's secret treasure and power. Strength and knowledge of necromancy flower through her like a raging current. Her nation, parents, and people all perished, but she vowed to bring them all back with her newfound power. After all, the skill she gained is necromancy itself. However, no matter how many times she tried, he reached the crown's limit and failed. Upon her throne, 3 centuries passed with no one but the undead beside her. Thus, she became the undead king they all feared in the first place. It was magnificent necromancy indeed. Things were getting dull until Zell appeared, asking for the undead king for help. Somewhere in the dungeon lay the magic orb, and he'll grant any wish if she corrupts it with darkness. The black gem symbolizes the pact between the two. Having just one wish and not wanting anything else in the world, Alice accepted the proposition. With enough human sacrifices, she has the power to unleash a fearsome curse, much to Zell's delight. The words she forced from that reborn corpse rang hollow like empty lies. Now, she can no longer recreate human warmth, and her only power is deception. The comforting memories of a time before the war came rushing toward her body, but she could only feel cold, and not even the sun could reach her frozen heart. It might be possible, if only she could rebuild the kingdom of smiles, the real Lifton. Kazu shook with the thought of the cruelty done to a poor and innocent girl. She must also have named her army the Legion of Lifton, in hopes of the nation's revival. Getting an idea, the princess desperately turns to Alan and asks if it's possible. However, all he can do is bury the dead, not resurrect them. After all, a shovel can only dig graves. As she comes to terms with it, they notice the miner doing something. His power was rewinding rapidly. Staying too long in the realm will have them swallowed whole, so they have to retrieve the black gem. Alice screamed in surprise as she suddenly found herself being dragged from the darkness. The black gem itself was being retracted, and she's left spinning above them when the shovel returned to its original form. Alan makes a few motions with his weapon and aims it at the undead king. Considering it the beginning of their first battle with Zell, his black magic was emanating from the gem on her forehead. Facing it head-on, the miner strikes and unleashes the power of his holy dig, purifying the crystal and dislodging it right from the young lady's face. Just like that, the evil is exorcised from the entire castle, replaced by a purifying light shot high into the sky. Alice opened her eyes a while later, and she was finally awake to see the people before her. The gem on her head was gone without a trace. According to Alan, he excavated it and sealed the evil 10,000 meters underground. The deep hole in the middle of the room was proof of that feat. He then addresses her, saying he's witnessed her past and present journey. In fact, she must have already noticed it during her ordeal earlier. Back when she was captured, the undead king broke into a sweat. With his shovel, he offers to dig up the sensations buried in her heart. The thought of feeling something again seemed impossible, but he insists that interacting with the shovel can help her regain all her sensations. Hearing this, Letty offers to give her rehabilitation therapy every day, but the memory of their encounter earlier makes her skeptical, especially considering how they're enemies. That said, the princess thought the reason was pretty obvious. It's because they've already shared a special and irreplaceable bond. Since she's seemingly convinced, she moves to proceed with the therapy right away, prompting the small girl to fly away in a panic. However, she fails to escape and starts to sweat again, reacting to life around her. The group has obtained the blue orb, and now 5 more remain. There was a grand city in the middle of the scorching desert. For the first time in years, Alice sees the modern royal capital. Not much has changed, and civilization on sand was still bustling with business. It's a militaristic superpower northwest of Rostiel. Though most of it is desert, oases scattered sustain the pockets of farmland nearby. Their army's strength is unmatched, and its lust for conquest keeps tensions with Rostiel high. Despite being right under the sun, the capital has no warmth to it at all. Letty acts like her usual self and screams about being from the Great Shovel Kingdom. Her guard silences her urgently, saying names of made-up kingdoms won't work there. Unfortunately, the commotion has already been noticed by one of the soldiers. Alan was pointing his shovel around, confirming that the next gem lies within the city's borders. They'll need a carriage to get to the pyramid it's in, and a bit more intel would also be great. For some reason, Alice began going off on their frail bodies, exposing her own and saying she can't even feel the sun. Since she's complaining so much, Letty takes it upon herself to proceed with their rehabilitation for today. After this, they'll go ahead and get her some proper clothes. Essentially, the immortal king has joined their journey, and she might even be stronger than Kazu. Still, for a bunch of weirdos like them, someone with common sense is desperately needed. The princess's guard is relieved to know that the miner is actually aware of how odd he is. Just then, loud voices came from a tent filled with human trafficking activities. A sleazy man rubbed himself against a woman he bought, obviously ridden with worldly desires. Up next was a former royal knight, who can be useful for a huge variety of tasks. In fact, he must be worth his weight in gold. As the bidding started, countless bids flew, and the market was roaring with activity. With profits like this, the slavers' boss was sure to be thrilled. Their head, Javak, was arriving soon, and news is that he's bringing top-grade merchandise. They smiled at their ever-reliable boss. Outside, Kazu growled at the slave traders. In Sabronia, might determines right, making the vile practice perfectly legal. Alan's attention is stolen as he suddenly feels something strong from a distance. Asking what's wrong, the guard is told that it's somewhere far off into the desert, a strong mining aura that was basically screaming to be checked out. It's comparable to the aura of a master, no doubt a precious treasure. As it seems to be fairly important, he decides to take a look alone. They don't have a carriage yet, and spatial leap won't work on places he hasn't gone to, so he'll just have to dig there manually. Using his minor submersion technique, he plowed deep into the hard ground of the capital, leaving only a deep hole large enough to fit a single man. While it's another unbelievable display, it's one of the few times where his shovel actually acts like one. Far into the desert, the sound of camels galloping across the sand rang. Javak laughed as he told Yuri to run faster, chasing her into the capital. The poor lady continued to run under the sweltering heat, until she fell over and dropped the bottle of Lahar's water she was holding. Coming down from the carriage to pick it up, he asks what was wrong. She tried her best to flee, but now that he's caught her, she's doomed to be a slave for life. Yuri's expression was grim, already knowing what her fate was going to be. With the bottle in his hand, she couldn't even run and would rather become a slave. However, it isn't just a normal bottle of water, it's proof of her calling as the water priestess. Understanding its value, Javak slyly tells her to come take it herself, unable to keep his corrupt eyes off of the young lady's body. As the finest slave of this year, he vows to sell her at the highest price. Just then, a voice says the rare aura must have been coming from the priestess herself. Alan's face popped up from under the sand, making Yuri scream and jump back in shock. As he introduced himself, the slaver questioned why such a man was all the way out there. The miner simply followed the pull of his shovel's signal, leading him to the treasure that ended up being the water priestess. His words make her brilliant eyes stare in wonder. She declines the kind words, saying they don't fit a sinner like her. It's revealed that she actually ran away and abandoned her homeland and her duty to the Rahal tribe. While he quietly studied her, Javak raised his whip, saying she's more than a slave than she is a gem for the miner. As he might also be able to fetch a high price, the trader attacked, intending to turn the newcomer into a slave as well. Alan charged in, making use of the enemy's overreaching weapon. He realizes too late that he's made a mistake, as the miner had already closed the gap and left him defenseless. With one swing of the shovel, the man is dead. Yuri is shocked by the sight she witnesses. He asks if anyone has any more questions, and demands to know why a demon was pretending to be a slave trader in the capital. Javak's voice cursed him, and asked how he possibly saw through it. To put it simply, it's the power of his shovel, a statement that naturally makes the demon cackle in disbelief, thinking it's an amusing joke. While the situation is a bit outside the plan, he's already fulfilled the orders of his master, Zell. Alas, it's the same enemy once again. He was told that entrapping the priestess of water would resurrect the dragon sleeping in the pyramid. Its power will annihilate the land, along with the cursed jewel hidden in the desert. Yuri couldn't believe what she was hearing right now. Alan explains that the doppelganger demon specializes in transforming into humans and animals. As he says that, the real Javak is likely already dead, a familiar hand pops out of the sand. His three companions appeared, following the hole he dug from the capital. He reports that he's secured both a carriage and information, which will help with their search. Surprisingly, Yuri sees Alice and asks why the child was floating in the air. Night falls and they all recuperate with the new addition to the group. The newcomer expresses her gratitude for their help and properly introduces herself as the successor to the Rahal priestess. She began dancing gracefully to a non-existent tune. As Alan questions it, she says it's her way of thanking him for saving her. The ladies scold Alan for asking such a tactless question and encourage the girl to keep dancing. Grateful for their support, Yuri continues with her graceful performance. The desert of Sabronia thrives thanks to the scattered oases. To keep them from drying up, the priestesses have, for generations, performed the rite of calling water. While Letty gets the wrong takeaway and aims to create a rite for the shovel, Alan wonders about the demon's words on the connection of the oasis to the pyramid. A pyramid far older than Sabronia is a specialized spell meant to seal a dragon that devours despair. Thus, the chilling story of the beast is told. It is a legendary dragon that turned the land into a desert long ago. The first shaman pillar, where the lady sealed the dragon, has been passed down only to the Lahat tribe. After long and painful training, Yuri was able to inherit the title, but her performance failed. The amount of water in the oasis represents the source of the first priestess' power. When the tribe saw things changing, the heartless chief led the people to turn and drive her out the village. To atone for her shortcoming, she traveled to the pyramid to become a living sacrifice for the seal. Regardless of the ridiculousness, she was chased by slave traders and demons on the way to the site. This is also the reason why she called herself a sinner. Considering how she talked about the change in the chieftain, they ask about his appearance. With her answer, the priestess is stunned as Alan takes the chief's clothes from the carriage. It's her tribe's sacred set of clothing, worn only by the head of their people. In other words, the demon wasn't just posing as a slaver, but also their tribe chief. The drop in the oasis water levels was likely also caused by his tampering. They framed her for the incident, which is in line with the mission the demon talked about before perishing. She couldn't believe it and desperately asks where the real head is. Unfortunately, his silence is enough to answer her question. Seeing her fall deathly still, they cautiously called her name, but Yuri just swiftly turned without a word. The priestess performs each and every part of the water calling ritual and offers it up to her fallen chief. They all watched in awe, unable to say a word and entranced by her graceful movements. Its end is met with applause, and Alice emphasizes how such a dance would be impossible for others. Alan agrees, adding that he only sensed her presence because she is a true shrine maiden. As the best proof of all, he shows them his shovel, which now had a pool of resonating and pure water, called on by her ritual. The water itself is explainable, but why it was on the shovel was as usual a mystery. Letty wraps it up and calls the water Yuri's shovel juice. The girl is flustered by the bold name, but the miner surprisingly agrees with her words. They proceeded to fawn over her impressive skills, even fervently drinking from the tool. Their passion while drinking makes her embarrassed, and even Kazu believed that it was embarrassing, but neither of them could do anything. Later on, Alan shares that the mana orb is located in the pyramid where the dragon is sleeping. Their advantage over Zell is that they have a better grasp of where the other orbs might be. As for this task, they'll undoubtedly need the help of the Water Shrine Maiden. Knowing it's her duty to seal the dragon, she gladly accepts the responsibility. Now, the group moved toward the pyramid without an ounce of fear. As the camels pulled the carriage forward, they talked about the legend of the dragon, whose wings were so wide that it blotted out the sun. It showered the land of lush greenery with its scorching breath. According to Rahal myths, the monster that devours despair emerged from a rift in hell. It tells how the vibrant greenery was all burned away, leaving only a desert. As a tomb to seal the dragon away, the first priestess built a pyramid with her power. This is no more a myth than any of them there. In other words, the dragon is also there without question. Since they can't just give up on the orb, they decide to rely on the miner's reliable strength alone. Yuri hears the ridiculous thought for the first time and is left confused. Barely batting an eye, Alan says excavating ruins is exactly what his shovel is for. Kazu worries about him meddling with the land again, so he says they'll be clearing it normally. With that said, he's thought about it, and the fact that miner construction is impossible for an apprentice. Since there might be a need to split up in the future, he's decided to teach the skill to his disciple. It's true that they might have to go their own ways, but she doesn't seem keen on the lesson. The conversation is interrupted as the pyramid soon comes to view. Its massive body left the humans in awe, but it's fitting to serve as the tomb of the dragon said to devour despair. Yuri looked to the top, fearing what's to come. On the other hand, Letty was already too busy looking for the entrance to the place. There is no entrance, and it was most likely a riddle they had to answer to come inside. Alice wonders where Kazu's sudden excitement came from. She's apparently a fan of such romance, which she couldn't experience ever since Alan's overpowered shovel came to play. As if right on cue, he moves to dig until he finds the answer to the riddle. The dungeon fanatic tries to stop him, but he's already pushed his tool into the sand, digging for answers. An old man with a sunken body is surprisingly tossed to the sky. They looked up and stared in absolute confusion, already having an idea of what it might be. The body drops to the sand, and they question how the answer to the riddle is a mummy. A new mystery has appeared, and it has something to do with the markings on his chest, which was similar to the Reihal chief's. It sounds unbelievable at first, but upon taking a closer look, she confirms that it is indeed Chief Lumo. The doppelganger must have buried him there, but he was still somehow breathing. Alan takes his shovel and places it over his body. To their shock, he reverses time itself, saying he's digging the timeline back to before his body was mummified. His feats were getting even more ridiculous. Regardless, his power allows the chief to regain his body, which was popping with muscles and filled with vigor. He smiled upon seeing Yuri, relieved to see that she's all right. She couldn't believe her eyes and began to tear up. Considering how he's jumped up the carriage, he seems to be quite another character. Letty praised Alan's shovel, focusing on his power as usual, so much so that the priestess started to get intrigued. Lumo then told the story of how he was attacked by the doppelganger all of a sudden. As they stopped him from reaching his goal, he couldn't be any more grateful. He was brought there because only the Reihal chiefs know the entrance to the pyramid. Knowing that the demons would fail if he refused to talk, he was prepared to sacrifice himself, but never did he imagine that it'd take his form and deceive his people. Enraged, he for some reason struck a pose and commanded the entrance to open. Following his order, one part of the pyramid's base dropped to reveal an opening. The interior is a magical domain, filled with ancient traps to ward off tomb robbers. With him there, their path to the depths was clear and safe, and he was even glad to assist in their search for the magic jewel. With the pyramid raid getting increasingly easier, Kazu's mood was also dropping. Once they return, Yuri intends to succeed at the ritual and seal the dragon without issues. Facing the path, Alan then tells his apprentice that it's her turn. She's instructed to activate the miner's light with the shovel and illuminate the structure's interior. While she's skeptical at first, she can't decline as her princess directly orders her. Despite her disbelief, she does as told and focuses, staring at the shovel's tip hard. To her surprise, a light suddenly appeared to answer her call. Her success elicits a variety of reactions, even from her, as she refuses to believe that she was getting pulled into the illogical way of the shovel. Alan recalls how she used the apprentice helmet back in Lifton. During that time, the common sense in her brain was excavated, opening the path to learning. She feels like he toyed with his body, but he reminds her of their agreement to awaken her sleeping talent. The two pause this argument for now, as Lumo encourages everyone to proceed inside already. Upon reaching the first gate, they encounter a bunch of mummies, serving as guardians. Each and every enemy is quickly eradicated, mainly with Alan and Alice's power. The others also supported, but in a more subtle method. At the second gate, they meet the corridor of needles, which attack anyone who tries to cross. If they press the button at the end of the hall, all the needles retract for a safe passage. The immortal king floated forward, passing through the countless weapons that pierced her body, but her glory was stolen by the miner, who used his shovel like a whip to hit the button. At the third gate, Lumo suggests finding another route as they need 3 Rahal tribe members. Wanting to be efficient, Alan volunteers to be the third, much to their confusion. Even more surprising is when he uses his minor skills and creates a disguise that makes him look exactly like Yuri. With the gate cleared, Letty praised her beloved partner, but the 2 others complain about how he's hogging all the action. Aside from that, they still hadn't found the magic jewel, and the altar room is all that remains. In front of a huge door, an enormous statue spoke, addressing them with a question. They're surprised and wonder if it's a monster of some sort, but Lumo just explains that it's the last guardian, the Sphinx. If they correctly answer a riddle it chooses, from tens of thousands, they'll be allowed inside. Even the chief doesn't know all the answers, and only hopes for a question he's already encountered. Those who answer incorrectly or cheat will be struck by the guardian's ancient death curse. Alan is already considering using his shovel to answer, but worries that it'll be cheating. Just then, the Sphinx called for their attention as the riddle was about to be asked. It asks for what has 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening. Lumo and Kazu were overjoyed, since this is the easiest riddle, which they both know the answer to. The knight was just about to give the answer, but Letty suddenly interrupted, saying the answer is a shovel. They're shocked by the answer that was just blurted out without thought. She explains her answer, saying she saw a 4-legged toddler shovel in her dream, and recalling the 2-legged shovel soldiers Alan made in the elf castle. As for the evening, the reason it has 3 legs is because it shovels. The Sphinx was silent for a long time, as if thinking about her unexpectedly ridiculous reply. That said, riddles don't necessarily have just one right answer. Lumo howled with joy, not expecting there to be another way to convince the guardian. Alice slowly loses it, and finds the princess's words oddly persuasive. To their shock, the Sphinx actually checks with Letty, and asks if she likens shovels to man. With a bright smile, she confirms that it is something that encompasses the concept of man. It isn't a straight answer, so the guardian asks again, but her roundabout words only continue to rain down, made worse by her complete faith in them. Broken by her logic and somewhat sick of it, the Sphinx admits defeat and opens the doors to the altar room. Letty celebrates winning through sheer momentum and grit. No matter the method, they now had a clear path towards their destination. In the middle of the room was a statue of the first priestess, and below it was the magic orb. Yuri stared in wonder, seeing the first-generation shrine maiden for the first time. Cutting through the moment, Letty loudly shouts and points, and the glowing red crystal found by the woman's feet. Right as she said this, the water around them suddenly began to rise, and the earth where they stood started shaking uncontrollably. The sound was uncanny. It was the deafening roar of a raging dragon. Yuri fell to her knees, collapsing under the pressure. Lumo calls to her and asks what was wrong. He's confused as she says that it was just like that time. When she failed the water calling rite, she aimed to sacrifice herself in the pyramid to atone. However, when she clearly heard the voice of the dragon inside and felt its suffocating presence, even from outside, she was struck with terror. As such, she ran. The priestess had steeled herself for what was to come, but fear shattered her resolve and she fled to save her own skin. The slave traders came for her soon after, which is when they met each other. They're stunned by her confession. She found herself worthless, as someone who can neither complete the rite nor offer herself. This is the real reason why she branded herself as a sinner. Her body shook with tears of shame. Just then, enormous talons shot up from the ground, breaking the first statue. The force nearly sends the others flying, and the Rahal tribesmen spot something in the air. Shattered into pieces was the shrine maiden's statue, and in the middle of it was the red magic crystal. Deeming the woman unfit to bear the name of the priestess, the dragon's claws reached up to take the ball for himself. With the newfound power in his hands, he will now awaken from the seal. The entire pyramid explodes, and the humans are barely saved with the miner's barrier power. While Alan stood his ground, protecting his companions, they looked at the sky in horror and disbelief. The dragon that devours despair has been resurrected into the world. It was an immense monster that covered the skies, one that humankind had no chance of defeating. According to the world's law, it's true that humans cannot defeat dragons. However, there are certain exceptions that break those laws, including the shovel in Alan's hands. The dragon scoffed at the foolish human, who dared to challenge him with a mere shovel. A bright light gathered above its head. It's the same scorching breath that turned the once lush greenery into a desert. Realizing just how powerful the attack aimed at them was, they realized that the entire region would be wiped out if it actually hit the ground. As terror began to take over Yuri's body, Alice suddenly opened a large gate to the unknown. The immortal king intended to swallow the fire breath and send it to another dimension. With that, its power shouldn't matter against her. Finding them pitifully clever, the dragon hit her gates with a spell that dismantled it in an instant. Alice is shocked, but Alan knows right away that it's magic erasure. They're told not to resist, as all humanity had been doomed the moment the priestess sealed him. Now, all they have to do is atone for her sin with their lives. Yuri was at the edge of her sanity, when Letty's voice then cut through the chaos, insisting that the maiden was no sinner. Her daring but resolute remark stuns the others, even the dragon. To the princess, she's a true hero who risked her life to save the nation. Now, her successor faced her fear head-on to do the same, and there is no one more worthy of bearing the title of the Water Priestess. Looking at her, Letty looked like a hero in her own right, raising her little red shovel high. The dragon was sick of it, and unleashed its mighty breath. A familiar tune and melody played, and the once blinding light from the fire breath suddenly disappeared. As the beautiful sound continued to play, a lone figure danced in the middle of the terrain. It was Yuri, moving gracefully as she performed the water-calling ritual, the secret dance of the mist. Through her hard work, she was able to devour the dragon's flames with her own colossal water magic. Proceeding, she quietly thanks the nation's princess for helping her find her identity. She is Yuri, water priestess of the Rahal tribe, who is destined to block all the disasters caused by the dragon of despair. The monster glared at her with hatred. Believing that it's all just human magic in the end, it moves to attack again, now with another magic erasure roar like before. Alan had no intention of giving him the chance, and charged in to face the monster of legends. From his shovel, an equally loud sound roared to resonate against the dragon's attack. They're all stunned in complete confusion and bewilderment for a moment, unable to believe that a voice just came out of the excavation tool. Letty had already accepted the oddity, rejoicing at the shovel's roar. Alan says it matched the wavelength of the dragon's to completely neutralize its erasure. While it seemed like an impossible feat, Yuri's cleansing water ball was indeed intact. The princess seems like she's made a logical connection to explain the phenomenon, but she goes on about how a miner digs, and how dig and roar only differ by just one character. Naturally, a single letter won't matter much to a miner of Alan's caliber. Like always, she made no sense. Despite it, both the magic erasure and fire breath have been completely neutralized, meaning they can now focus on an attack to defeat the legendary dragon. Lumo is shocked to see Alan fly through the sky with a shovel. Same with Yuri, who is impressed with the digging tool. Letty interjects that the shovel also has the reverse power. It can not just dig deeper underground but also do it in the opposite way, like soaring in the sky. Ever impressed with Alan's shovel, the princess starts to imagine him growing wings, and Kazu had to stop her from her delusions. Meanwhile, Alan is fighting head-on with the monster, who finds it insulting that he is trespassing the skies it is ruling. The monster exclaims that he deserves death, and a moment later, they clash. A large water ball then forms, much to Yuri's shock. At the same time, the monster attacks him with his rapid-fire technique. Alan points his shovel at him and uses Yuri's water priestess technique, which the Rahul tribe has fought for hundreds of years, risking their lives. Alan grips his shovel tightly and fires the water power at the beast's direction. He utters the shovel wave cannon, and the water envelops the beast, extinguishing its fire. The sight before Yuri is a myth itself. The dragon beast slowly disintegrates as its barrier shatters. Alan states that his shovel's cannon wave isn't magic, but if there is one thing that accounts for the beast's defeat, it is that his claws never dig as deep as his tool. After ultimately defeating the beast, Alan goes back to his team, using his shovel to safely land on the ground. Yuri is in awe of how strong Alan is. Her heart starts pounding as he shows everyone the red orb he got from inside the dragon beast's body. The princess celebrates after they secured the third magic gem. Later, they cook the dragon's meat, since it is rare and known to give the body an extra boost. Alan prepares a recipe, and once cooked, he serves it to them using his shovel, which disgusts Kazu and Alice. However, once tasted, Kazu can't help exclaim how delicious it is. Seeing their reactions, Alan explains the various ingredients he put into the dish, including the vegetables he gathered through the miner's spatial leap from the town's market. Upon hearing that he tenderized the meat using his shovel, Alice comments that he used the most absurd recipe ever written, but it surprisingly worked. Meanwhile, in the Rahul village, Lumo tells his subordinates to rejoice as the dragon beast that once plagued their home for the longest years has fallen. At last, their long-awaited wish has been fulfilled. He then presents Alan to the villagers, declaring that he was the one who freed them all from their curse. The villagers celebrate his presence, admiring that the horrifying dragon beast was slain with only using a shovel. They also discovered that the chieftain was once possessed by the evil dragon, and that the water summoning rite never failed. They apologize to the water priestess for having doubted her. Yuri smiles and tells them to credit all the hard work to Alan, since as the water priestess, she still lacks the ability to fully serve her people. She also mentions having witnessed a true miracle while traveling with Alan and his powerful shovel. While this is all happening, they notice that the princess has gone missing. As the villagers praise the heroes who saved their land, the team hears a weird chanting near them. When they look at the direction of the strange chanting, they see the princess worshipping the shovel and leading the villagers in doing so. She confidently states that it is only right, since the people of the village were saved because of the power of the shovel. They all also chant Alan's name, who seems unamused at what's happening. The three continue to watch the weird event unfold. The villagers prepare a feast for Alan that lasts all night. They keep on chanting his name as if he is a god that saved them from the ultimate ruin. The next day, they are holding small shovels and swear allegiance to the Holy Shovel Church, which irks Alice. Everyone is oddly carrying shovels, and they even build a statue of Alan. Kazu is also weirded out by the moment, since everyone now is suddenly a follower of Alan and his shovel. The princess then presents Yuri to them as the official first Holy Shovel Priestess of the church. Yuri looks at Alan and tells him that she will stay at the village to remain as the temple's priestess, but she wishes him safe travels. Alan thanks her for this. As they leave the village, the avid supporters of the miner continue to chant his name. Seeing her success, the princess aims to convert more lands and villages to worship Alan and his shovel. Kazu reminds her that their goal is to collect the gems and save their kingdom. Kazu is shaking from the cold. She expresses that even with her winter gear on, the cold is unnatural. Meanwhile, Alan is busy using his miner radar, but they have to keep moving. He can tell that the next magic orb is located at the village tower atop the world's highest peak. She watches as the man continues to tread through the cold, deep snows. He replies that since he is a miner, he is used to different harsh weather conditions. Kazu insists that this is hardly an explanation, while the princess is impressed yet again by how capable the miner is. Later, they finally reach the ice kingdom of Silesia. The Absolute Zero Kingdom is surrounded by the Volapedal Mountains. It is a secluded nation where temperatures remain below freezing year-round. It is said to be founded by Lady Lily, who was the great ice sage. She was known to produce an incredible feat to form a nation in that harsh land. Letty is excited to enter Silesia and find out information on the magic orbs and the Black Iron Tower, but upon just arriving at the kingdom, they can see villagers frozen in place. At first, they thought them to be just sculptures, but they realize that they are far too real looking and all over the capital. Alice points out that they are all under the ice coffin spell, which instantly freezes living beings. She can sense that blizzard snow is getting out of control and that the ground is turning into snowy chaos resulted by mana snow. With this, they decide to trace the source of the snowy mana, impressed by Alice's deduction skill. However, they express worry that they all would be frozen solid if they also stay in the danger zone. Alice assures them that's not the case since it should have happened already. For some reason, they're not affected by the mana snow. They finally reach the source of the ice coffin mana and find a large block of ice in which a girl is trapped inside. Looking closely at the frozen statues, it seems like they were trying to flee from the plaza. Kazu wonders if this means that the girl froze all of Silesia. Based on her stance, it's as if she was in the middle of a battle since her outfit is scorched and torn too. They wonder who she really is and if she was the villain in this picture. With this, they decide to wake her up and ask what really happened. Kazu warns against the decision, saying that the girl could be a powerful witch, while Alice's worry is how Alan would melt the ice enveloping the girl. As they shift their gaze back again to the frozen girl, she is already thawed in an instant. He tells them that he simply applied high heat on the tip of the shovel, and thus he managed to melt the ice. The girl, now freed from the ice, slowly opens her eyes. She then raises her wand against the group. Kazu immediately springs into action and protects the princess. Suddenly, the girl experiences a sharp pain in her head. Disoriented, she looks around and asks where she is. She doesn't even know her identity and seems like she has amnesia. This may be the side effect of being frozen for too long. Hearing this, Alan offers to dig up her lost memories. He then orders his shovel to dig, and with the magic word, something comes out from a portal-like dimension containing the girl's lost memories. He mentions that all memories reside in the lowest layer of the astral plane, and that he simply reached out for a copy of her lost memories inside. Kazu and Alice are also both disoriented and totally lost in what his shovel can do. The girl finally comes to and remembers her name as Lily. The group is shocked since she shares the same name as the founder of the town of Silesia. Kazu wonders who she really could be since it's impossible for the Ice Sage to be alive in the present. However, Lily explains that by mastering magic, it is possible to pause one's lifespan and conserve life. She has been researching that kind of magic and now knows that it is possible. She then reveals that she is the Ice Sage, Lily, and the founder of the Ice Kingdom. They are all in shock at this revelation since she looks like she is in her teens. Letty then comments that it must be the reason why she can withstand the cold even in her shredded outfit. The Ice Mage looks at her clothes and realizes that she is almost bare. She then shifts her gaze at Alan and almost immediately blushes out of embarrassment. Because of this, she remembers that she was in a battle before she froze herself. She isn't particularly cold, but she still has an ounce of shame in her. Then, she tries to fix her clothes. However, she realizes that she is out of mana and fails to do so. Later, the princess dresses her up and designs it based on the sage's original attire. The Ice Sage finds it incredible that the dress itself is charged with magic. She thanks the princess and comments that it will be useful if she ever runs out of mana. After she is dressed, they finally ask her why she and the kingdom were frozen. She explains that Ray, a mage who dabbled in the forbidden arts. He was the court mage of the Silesia Palace, but greed consumed him when he obtained power more than he could ever imagine. With this, he wanted to show the people that he had surpassed even the great Ice Sage. She told him that what he wanted was ridiculous since magic is not for conflict but for seeking the truth. Influenced with the dark power, he refused to listen to her, and instead he attacked her from behind. Lily was surprised to see him wielding the black flames since it was an ancient fire magic. That time, she had no choice but to fight back since it was a matter to protect the people of the Ice Kingdom. However, she lost control of her own power and went berserker against Ray's black flames. As a result, she accidentally froze the whole village, including herself. Ray then found the precious silver orb inside her bag, which he obtained for the purpose of gaining even more power. Kazu states that she was the wielder of the silver orb all this time. The Ice Mage reveals that she found it long ago in the snowy field. She kept it with her because she felt an unknown magic inside it. With this, she was the cause of the freezing all along, but Lily dodges this, saying it was all Ray's fault. What she did was self-defense. With this, the princess asks if she can return everyone to normal. The Ice Sage confidently answers that she can, since she is the Ice Sage after all. She can definitely thaw them, but she doesn't have enough mana right now. She has to take a long hot bath, do some deep stretches, and eat some delicious meal with plenty of sweet dessert. After this, she will have a good night's sleep in a fluffy bed, and her mana for undoing her magic will definitely fully restore. In disbelief, Kazu comments how she can relax like that when everyone is frozen. Alan then steps in and tells them to stand back. He then starts to generate thousands of degrees of intense heat at the tip of his shovel, and this should be enough to thaw the whole country. Feeling the scorching heat, Kazu protects the princess, and Alice tries to help her. Alan shoots the miner's sunlight, and its heat slowly melts the snow covering the whole kingdom. He also retrieves the memories of the citizens and brings everything back to normal in just a snap. Everyone can now resume their normal lives exactly as they were before the capital froze. Lily was so amazed with the display of incredible magic. Alan reiterates once again that what he did is no magic and he is just a miner. After a long day, Lily finally manages to do her long-awaited relaxation. She takes a long hot bath, eats delicious food, and sleeps in a fluffy bed. The next morning, her mana is fully restored, and she immediately goes back to her duties as the protector of the Ice Kingdom. The citizens immediately greet her, and from what she can see, the ice coffin spell was completely thawed out. It felt for her as if it was just a dream yesterday, so she is still in disbelief to see the kingdom back to normal. The others point out that she is completely in escapism mode, and she must accept the situation and believe what happened. Looking at her people, she is grateful that it seems like she can continue her daily life without the people knowing the battle that happened between her and the mage happened. Impressed, Lily tells Alan that she has never seen a magic system that uses a shovel to thaw the ice. He dismisses this as if not a big deal, stating that a shovel after all is used for clearing snow. The princess seconds this, saying that the shovel isn't magic, and it's the truth of the world. Lily also chimes in, and in an attempt to summarize what happened, she assumes that Alan is a disenchanter since he can break enchantments and curses. Meanwhile, Alice and Kazu can only look at the three and listen to their chaotic conversation. Kazu then turns to Lily and asks how Rei managed to learn the ancient magic. However, the ice mage doesn't have any idea at all. Kazu is quite disappointed to hear this since she expected her to be knowledgeable since she is a great mage. Alice agrees, saying that her mana is full, but her dignity is at 0. Lily suggests that they should hunt Rei and ask the questions to the man who committed the crime. With her mana now fully restored, she uses her power to track the location of her greatest enemy. She summons a crystal ball, and using it she searches for where Rei might be dwelling. The man's mistake was letting greed drive him insane and steal the silver orb. She searches the aura of the silver orb. Finally, she manages to find his location, which is somewhere between the mountainside and the summit of Mount Novo. Using this knowledge, she tells the group that they can now easily look for the man who enveloped the whole village in ice. However, instead of being grateful for the information, the group only stares at her. Letty reveals that they have already located Rei using Alan's shovel earlier. Furthermore, they pinpoint exactly that the silver orb is inside the Black Iron Tower at the summit, and that they only entered the Ice Kingdom to get information about the Black Iron Tower. Lily sulks, telling them that they could have told her sooner. She volunteers to bring them to the Black Iron Tower safely. However, the three women are quite dubious about this since she has been failing to show them her abilities as the great sage and doubts if she is even real. Later, they trudge towards the snowy mountains. They reach a lake that can immediately extinguish body heat in an instant. She tells them to get ready to cross the lake of death. She then holds her staff, reluctant to flaunt her power, but since it is her first interaction with foreigners in decades, she must demonstrate her power to save her dignity. Her wand glows under her touch and commands the snow to forge a path for them. She then creates an ice road all the way to the other side of the lake. Kazu and Alice find this impressive. She confidently looks at them and states that it is the power of the true sage, but reminds them that they must cross the ice one person at a time. This is to prevent the breaking of the ice since it is thin. Kazu immediately refuses the idea, stating that she can't let the princess cross such a dangerous road alone. Hearing this, Alan volunteers to build a bridge using ice and snow. He assures them that it is strong enough to carry an entire army, so they are safe to cross it at once. Letty praises the miner again for his incredible power, while the ice mage is incredulous. Just then, snow monsters appear from the skies and unleash scorching fire in their direction. She then forms an ice barrier that can protect them from the monster's breath of fire. She warns them to stay close. She adds that since they are flying inside a blizzard, it is the hardest to catch them. They must endure its fiery breath, since once it is spent, the beast will eventually flee. Hearing this, Alan thinks taking down the beasts is faster than waiting for them to get tired. Using his incredible shovel, he targets the beasts flying in the sky. In a snap, they all fall and are defeated by the shovel. With the enemies not present anymore, they continue to trudge the snowy path. Kazu leads the way, but gets stuck in the middle. She warns Letty to stay back since it is becoming dangerous to continue walking. The snow has gotten deeper as they climb halfway up Mount Novo, and at this rate, the cold will extinguish their body heat. To her surprise, her body suddenly levitates along with the others. Lily activates an anti-gravity spell that can help them move without sinking into the snow. The girls thank her for her help and praise her power. Lily notices that Alan is staring at something from a distance. He can hear a strange faint sound. To their surprise, he leaps and flies using his shovel. With enough height, he then observes where the sound is coming from. He remembers the exact sound back in the deepest layer of the abyss before, and there is no doubt that this is a sign of collapse. He calmly informs them that an avalanche is about to hit them in 10 seconds. The group did not have the chance to process what he meant when a wall of snow starts to envelop them. If they do not do anything, it is sure that they will be buried under the snow. With this, Lily creates an ice lodge and tells everyone to stay calm. She tells them that resisting an avalanche is dangerous and the safest thing to do is to take shelter in the snow itself. Kazu looks at the snow hut and doubts what it can do to save them. Nonetheless, they all take shelter inside. While she is anxious about their safety, the two other girls are thrilled to see a snow hut for the first time. Seeing Alan staying outside, she urges him to get inside quickly. While keeping his back to her, the man acknowledges that she is right. It is not smart to fight back the avalanche, and in this case, they must use the snow. He then digs his shovel into the ground. The impact creates a large explosion, and he uses the avalanche itself to build a much better and sturdier lodge. Since Kazu and Letty's body temperature are both dropping, he decides to take a full rest first at the inn and then discuss the Iron Tower and the Silver Orb situation tomorrow. Meanwhile, Lily is stunned. Everything that happened flashes back to her. The ice hut, the ice road, and the ice field. It turns out that everything she did, Alan found a way to make it better for everyone. Tears form in her eyes, overwhelmed by the realization that a great sage like her is no match against a mere gem miner. That night, Kazu observes the changing harsh weather conditions outside the inn. From the looks of it, Alan made the right decision to rest for the night for the safety of everyone. Alan then appears and offers her tea he brewed from the leaves that he got from another town. It can help her rest before bed. Meanwhile, the princess and Alice are making a mess in the living room. As the two are being chaotic in the background, Kazu notices that Lily is not around. Alan replies that the ice mage went to her room early, tired from casting so many spells to support them. He then tells her that there is enough room for everyone so she can pick whichever room she likes. With this, she retires early and bids goodnight to the princess. She walks to the hallway and hears strange noise coming from Lily's room. She tries to call for her and asks if she is okay, offering her tea as well to help her sleep. When she gets no answer, she slowly opens the door and finds her engrossed in her books. Finally, Lily notices her and explains that she is trying to uncover Alan's secret, and that is why she is surrounded by books. Kazu is confused to hear this. Lily expresses that when she saw the miner thaw by sunlight, she judged him to be a master curse breaker, but that fact alone could not explain how he can build a lodge out of an avalanche. She has never seen magic that blends transmutation, creation, and gravity like his. That is why she is so invested in uncovering his secrets. Kazu tries to discourage her from doing so since it is not magic to begin with. It is simply a superhuman feat and his incredible shovel. She remembers what the princess uttered before, that if humanity ever tries to comprehend it fully, they will be doomed. With a serious tone, Lily asks if Kazu wants to get as strong as Alan. The knight remembers the miner's words to her before, that she needs to learn to uncover her own strength and that now is her best chance to grow. Lily points out to her that magic stems from the 4 great elements. Her master taught her the laws of all creation, and yet it is not so simple that one could use magic just like that. Her master can do various types of magic and surpass himself every day, but she could not do that. It was not about the amount of knowledge or experience but one's will to make themselves better. One must never break and doubt themselves. In addition, as a magician, keeping the fire inside her alive helps her converse with the magical spirits around her so she can form a bond with them. For Lily, it was the spirit of ice that answered her voice. Only then did her true magic take form. She reiterates that a sage is not someone who knows everything but someone who continues to cultivate her knowledge. They often observe, analyze, and discover when confronted with the unknown. As a sage, she must have insatiable curiosity, and she is resolved to uncover the mystery of the shovel. If Kazu wants, she will share the knowledge that she will discover with her who is in pursuit of strength. The knight contemplates for a while and remembers all the scenes where the mage activated magic for them. If one would not compare it to Alan's ridiculous power, Lily's ice magic was all truly astonishing. If they analyze and understand the secret of Alan's shovel, they can use it to improve their own power and help them get stronger. She watches Lily be satisfied with herself by just thinking of uncovering the truth behind Alan's mystery. She then smiles at the ice mage, promising that she will share everything she knows, volunteering to assist her in her research of the mysterious shovel. The sage smiles at her, and this is the start of their partnership. Lily reminds her that research takes time, so they should not be in a rush. They should rest and prepare for tomorrow's battle. The two bid goodbye to each other. Just then, Letty appears from behind, Lily startling her. The princess admits that she overheard her conversation with Kazu that they were going to conduct research about the shovel. Letty smiles naughtily, stating that she has a better idea. The next morning, Kazu looks outside the window and is grateful that they are finally blessed with clear skies. Besides, she has also found hope for the first time. She is looking forward to learning the way of the shovel. She must understand the enemy and learn their power to make it her own. In this way, she can finally win against Alan. She prepares herself. After all, today marks her first day in her battle against the shovel. With a big smile on her face, she greets the princess a pleasant morning. However, to her surprise, Letty and Lily are both dancing to worship the shovel. Alice expresses her dismay since it looks like the sage also has fallen to the ways of the shovel. Kazu confronts the sage and asks what is happening. Lily explains that to uncover the secret of the shovel, she tried to cast magic using the tool as her medium. In short, she has replaced her wand with a shovel and has embroidered a shovel emblem on her robe. She also shows her the headband she created with the word shovel printed on it. Thrilled, she thinks that she is starting to understand the essence of the shovel now, but for Kazu it seems like she has been completely consumed by the shovel mania like Letty. Kazu curses herself for ever trusting the so-called sage even for a moment and declares that protecting the princess tainted by the cursed shovel is his sworn duty. She urges them onward and proclaims that the real challenge lies ahead at the summit. Kazu vows that no one will ever make her bow to the shovel's will. The group advances across the snow, while Kazu bristles with defiance. Deep down, Kazu still feels uneasy, but she hasn't realized yet that at the core of her conviction lies the shovel. The blizzard intensifies as sharp gusts slice across the mountain as the group struggles forward beneath the storm. Pushing on together, Letty remains calm. A towering pillar of iron pierces the blizzard, its full height disappearing into the storm above. Battling the wind below, the group arrives at the iron tower, stunned by its insane height as the peak remains hidden from sight. The miner's detector reacts to the magic gem as Alan confirms this is the place, and Lily notes that no structure like it has ever stood atop the mountain. Sensing the atmosphere, Vecna warns that it's more than dark clouds and the presence here feels outright ominous. Vecna approaches the tower surrounded by a shroud of wicked magic which points to the sorcerer hiding on the upper floors. Lily suddenly reacts as she calls out Ray's name. Letty realizes the iron tower's door is already open. Kazu warns that entering alone is dangerous, suspecting traps or threats waiting inside. After a brief pause, Alan decides to secure the area first and proceed carefully. Still uneasy, Kazu questions what secure really means as her doubt clearly shows. Alan raises his shovel, radiating sharp magic as its power activates. Meanwhile, Ray observes the group through an orb, revealing their location. From inside his lair, Ray mocks Lily for breaking free, finding the orb, and daring to enter with her companions. He fixes his gaze on Lily, recognizing her instantly as his interest sharpens. The mage warns that the tower's interior is riddled with countless traps, boasting that his defenses run deep. Ray boasts that conquering them may take days, but he will personally face them on the top floor if needed. He scoffs at the idea of them reaching him unharmed, declaring it outright impossible. His mocking laughter cuts off as the door suddenly opens, revealing the group standing before him. They pause in confusion, exchanging stunned looks at the unexpected turn. Ray freezes in disbelief, unable to process how they suddenly appeared before him. Panicking, Ray shouts in disbelief and demands to know why they are already on the top floor when they were just at the entrance moments ago. Lily freezes in surprise as the situation sinks in. Realization hits when they notice the surroundings, confirming this is actually the first floor of the tower. Letty cheers brightly, praising Alan and celebrating the unexpected shortcut. She casually remarks that the iron tower is nothing more than a single-story shack once the shovel gets to work, rendering the mage in shock. Alan calmly stares back, triggering Ray to lose his composure and demands answers as he accuses them of destroying the tower's magic. Alan explains that during the so-called infiltration, he excavated all 66 floors, filling every trap zone with miner's masonry and directly linking the top and ground floors where the orb once rested. Overwhelmed, Ray panics as the explanation piles up and barely able to process how everything is already connected. he bluntly questions whether Alan's solutions are always limited to extremes. Shocked, Vecna realizes Alan used the same technique once employed in Lifton, where 7 layers of an underground labyrinth collapsed into a single path. Letty proudly declares that the shovel can do anything. The others finally grasp that this isn't just brute force, but an unbelievably adaptable spell domain. A violent vortex of dark magic suddenly opens, swallowing the space before them and radiating overwhelming malice. Lily and Letty stiffen in shock as the surge erupts. Realizing the danger too late, Kazu cries out in alarm as Lily is caught in the attack. Declaring Lily useless, Ray coldly casts her aside as he condemns her without hesitation. In an instant, Lily unleashes a devastating blast and uses Absolute Zero to block the mage's attack, halting the destruction at the last moment. Stunned, the mage realizes the black flame has been completely erased. In the settling aftermath, Lily coldly demands answers as she calls Ray. She questions how a mere court mage could wield ancient magic and reveal his true motive for stealing the silver orb. Letty smiles with excitement while the others feel the situation is oddly surreal. Ray smirks subtly as he focuses on the silver orb resting openly on its pedestal. Revealing his intent, Ray declares the silver orb was only a bait. Lily freezes in shock, repeating the word as the realization begins to sink in. From the darkness, Ray reveals his master's true desire, which turns out to be Letty. She blinks in confusion and she struggles to process it. Ray's grin widens, his expression confirming the cruel intent behind the revelation. The group erupts in shock, demanding answers from the mage. Overwhelmed by the chaos and explanations, Letty mentally gives up as she is unable to follow the conversation anymore. A glowing portal opens as an ancient spell for dimensional communication activates. A familiar, ominous voice emerges and addresses Letty with mocking warmth and calling her as radiant as ever after so many years. Close-ups of their eyes meet through the spell, tension spiking as recognition hits both sides at once. Vecna bristles at the speaker's pompous tone, her expression sharpening with restrained anger. Kazu fires back and accuses him of overstepping by extending his reach even into Silesia borders. Letty reels in disbelief, her voice faltering as she struggles to accept the truth. Alan calmly steps forward and acknowledges the moment as their first true face-to-face meeting. A sinister throne room is revealed above the void as Zell finally shows himself. She gasps in shock, instantly recognizing Zell. Ray conjures a massive dark portal as Zell demands forgiveness. He reveals that to protect Letty, they spread rumors of a fake princess and placed a bounty on her head to divert attention. Zell explains that when Letty fled alone with the magic gem from Rostiel, he worried constantly for her safety. Zell acknowledges Letty's lineage, declaring her truly born of royal blood. He acknowledges Kazu, Vecna, and Lily on Letty's side. Observing her composure, Zell admits his admiration for her poise and authority, but he hints that his judgment isn't finished yet. Zell openly proclaims Letty as the true royal, hailing her as the shining jewel of Rostiel. Channeling dark magic, Ray notes there is still one more companion among her group. Alan is singled out as someone who keeps company with strange and dangerous sorcerers. Zell directly addresses Ray, coldly asserting his authority and ordering Ray to know his place. Ray's expression twists with shock and strain as overwhelming magic pressure bears down on him. He kneels and offers an apology before Zell. Sensing the aura firsthand, Lily recognizes the power as something deeply sinister and unnatural. She concludes he stands far beyond the level of an ordinary demon, then deduces he gained ancient magic through a contract with a high-ranking devil. Ray collapses under the pressure, sweat pouring as the truth of his pact leaves him visibly shaken. Lily dismisses Zell's claim, calling the idea of shedding one's past to escape the law of foolish delusion. Surveying the chamber, Zell searches for Alan, only to realize he is nowhere to be found. Kazu stiffens as it dawns on her that Zell doesn't even recognize Alan's presence. Noticing Alan's stance, she wonders if he's activating the shovel's power again. The weapon flares to life, confirming her suspicion as she shouts that he is definitely doing it. Alan remains silent, causing Kazu to pause for a moment. He explains that it's miner's telepathy, a skill that allows direct mental communication with a specific person. She reacts in disbelief, mocking it as something closer to insanity than telepathy. Alan calmly clarifies that even if this is his real body, Zell can only perceive him through a projected screen. Alan explains that strategically, it's better to deny the enemy real-time information, revealing that he's using stealth cope to adjust his presence relative to Zell. Kazu mutters in awe that the shovel is absurdly versatile, even joking about how it supports stealth tactics too. Alan agrees with her as she calmly states that she'll explain everything to the others later. Letty suddenly cuts through the atmosphere with an unexpected shout. She firmly declares that the throne belongs only to the rightful king of Rostiel. She coldly declares that there is no seat for a devil like Zell, ordering him to step aside as he sits firmly upon the throne. His eyes narrow beneath a strained expression, barely containing his agitation. Zell suddenly bursts into loud laughter, the dark magic swirling as the tension spikes in the chamber. Letty stares back without flinching as Zell states that her strong spirit is even more beautiful than her appearance. Zell covers his face in frustration, muttering that it's a shame especially because of this place. Zell clutches his face in frenzy, declaring that the throne is already his and has always belonged to him. The group reacts in shock, their expressions freezing as the revelation sinks in. Zell reveals the final proof of Rostiel's king, stating that the remaining royal blood now rests in his hands, with the crown hidden inside. Letty stares forward calmly as Zell calls out to her. He admits he is a demon, confessing that he truly loves her deeply despite everything. Zell admits that even the sight of Letty in despair brings him twisted satisfaction. He paints a fantasy of a shared utopia, promising happiness, children, and a perfect life he claims he can create. Zell is ready to give her anything she wants, declaring he will take on any form she wishes as he transforms into a towering figure. Kazu stiffens as an unsettling sensation washes over her. A strange warmth creeps in as Zell's words begin to take effect, making her question why they feel so comforting. Sensing danger, Lily urgently tells everyone to cover their ears to avoid being affected. Vecna immediately identifies the technique, realizing Zell is stacking brainwashing magic on top of his transformation. Fully transformed, Zell confidently addresses Letty and formally asks her to accept his courtship. Let finally addresses Zell directly, her voice steady as she faces him through the dark magic. She looks up with unwavering resolve and declares that her answer has already been decided. Kazu panics and shouts for her to pull herself together. Letty firmly rejects him, stating she has no desire for him and will choose no one other than Alan. Kazu recoils in shock, stunned by Letty's blunt and decisive rejection. Vecna freezes in shock, and Lily's expression goes blank, stunned into silence by the absurd turn of events. Embarrassed for Zell, Ray remains on the ground. Alan stands there calmly, activating the glowing shovel without a word. Zell is left confused after hearing Letty mutters about a miner digging with a shovel. Zell pauses for a moment, until he calls for Ray. Zell notices interference in the transmission and suspects foreign noise has entered the link. Ray panics and insists the formula is flawless, desperately trying to defend himself. As tension spikes, Letty steps forward and declares that she made a promise. She recalls her promise to Alan, stating that doing something special with anyone else is absolutely impossible. The girls panic and shout for Letty to calm down, flustered as the situation spirals into chaos. Zell explodes in anger, accusing them of mocking the transmission as the noise worsens. Ray breaks down, insisting he had no intention of causing this interference and has no idea what's happening. Zell snaps, insisting that words are not random noises while the chaos continues as the girls try to calm her down. She raises the scoop as Letty begins to emphasize what it truly represents. She declares her vision of leading the world into a new era, calling it the ultimate truth behind the scoop. Her eyes reflect the scoop's symbol as her resolve sharpens. A radiant vision manifests, showing multiple blazing figures forming in response to her declaration. A blinding burst of pink light erupts, instantly swallowing the figures as shock ripples through the space. Kazu shouts for Letty as she's caught in the sudden phenomenon. Vecna reels in shock, staring ahead and asking what just happened. Alan steadies himself while holding the glowing shovel, while Zell turns sharply. Ray recoils in shock, instinctively shouting as the sudden surge catches him off guard. A radiant flash erupts, its brilliance overwhelming everything in front of it. Lily stares wide-eyed, beginning to grasp the nature of the phenomenon. From afar, the group watches as the strange light lingers, silhouettes frozen beneath its glow. Ray is visibly shaken, muttering in disbelief and questions what that light could possibly be. Ray suddenly senses something strange, prompting him to panic as he shouts Zell's name. The girls freeze, eyes wide and stunned by the abrupt turn of events. Zell snaps back angrily as someone shouts about his face. He pauses on the steps, visibly confused, and repeats the word as he questions what's wrong. Bringing a hand to his cheek, Zell checks himself as his expression turns uncertain. He looks back toward the group, demanding to know what's wrong with his face as distorted energy hums in the air. His irritation spikes as he shouts Ray's name, and the tension sharply escalates. His distorted voice cuts through the chamber. His words completely break down, turning into repeated scoop sounds as even his own speech becomes nonsense. The communication magic collapses into chaos, with overlapping voices and panicked shouts questioning why everything is failing. Kazu turns to Alan, demanding to know what he did this time as the situation spirals further out of control. Alan looks genuinely baffled and calmly insists that he didn't do anything at all. Lily reaches a calm conclusion as she states that the malfunction was caused by Letty. The group reacts in disbelief, questioning whether the princess herself was responsible. A silent close-up lingers as the realization sinks in. Letty stands alone with her back turned, surrounded by warped magic as the disturbance continues to spread. Lily confirms that the word scoop uttered by Letty interfered with Ray communication magic and caused the system to malfunction. Ray questions what was the light that blurred his vision. Lily explains that by repeatedly chanting scoop, Letty eroded Ray's consciousness and briefly overriding his control. That influence manifested as noise, behaving exactly like a magic formula in effect. Kazu pauses in confusion, realizing something familiar based on the description she just heard. Letty raises the shovel high, demanding Zell to witness what comes next. Within the tower, a violent reaction surges as its power is so severe it even threatens the existence of demons. She declares it a miracle unfolding in the world at this very moment. With unwavering conviction, Letty names it the Scoop Mythos. Her shining eye reflects the overwhelming force behind her proclamation. Zell stands frozen as strange, scooping sounds echo around him. He mutters in disbelief, fixating on the claim that this power threatens demons. His lips twitch as confusion overtakes his thoughts. The chant collapses into nonsense as Scoop spills endlessly from his mouth. Panicking, Ray shouts that he has no idea Zell anyone is talking about. Zell continues chanting, Scoop, his voice distorted by the lingering magic. Ray obeys instantly, charging forward as the chant echoes uncontrollably. Watching in panic, Ray realizes one thing clearly, and that Zell is furious. As confusion spreads, he worries that Zell will blame him if this chaos isn't stopped. Sweat pouring down his face, he grimaces in terror as the situation spirals further out of control. Ray realizes the spell is being corrupted by noise, tracing it back to Letty's strange remarks. As the disturbance spreads through the tower from top to bottom, its abnormal behavior becomes impossible to ignore. He identifies a single shared cause behind everything, and that is the word scoop. Looking toward the group, Ray concludes that this nonsense must be caused by that very scoop. Nearby, Alan calmly maintains his steady position, observing the situation without reacting. Ray glares at Alan and declares him the root cause of all the chaos. Dark magic surges as Ray targets Alan directly, intent on eliminating him. Alan remains calm, focusing as he reinforces his magic barrier. Ray charges in, convinced that wiping Alan out will solve everything. Seeing the attack unfold, Lily shouts Alan's name in alarm. Alan vanishes mid-attack, slipping out of Ray's grasp in a blur of warped space. Ray freezes as panic hits, realizing his target has disappeared. Reappearing behind him, Alan catches Ray completely off guard. Alan explains that he used a space jump. As the others react in disbelief, Alan calmly confirms that even dimensions can be tampered with using a scoop. Ray grits his teeth, struggling to process what just happened. He lunges again and declares he has never seen a spell like Alan's before. Alan blocks the sudden strike with ease and states plainly that it is not magic. As Ray demands an explanation, Alan reveals it is Miner's Might, the scooping power itself. While the others shout in alarm, the fight escalates into a chaotic exchange of surprise attacks. Zell continues chanting incoherently as the corrupted power surges around him. The distorted spell expands into a chaotic vortex, with Zell screaming Letty's name while the magic spirals out of control. The dark, twisted energy abruptly snaps and begins to collapse in on itself. Lily observes that the spirit network has been cut off and confirms that Ray has already left the area. Letty innocently utters, Scoop, once more, unknowingly stirring the power again. The throne room stands eerily empty, with no sign of the caster anywhere in sight. The group notices that even the silver orb has been left behind, catching them completely off guard. After checking carefully, they confirm there is no trace of trap magic, concluding that Ray's disappearance has left everything in disarray. Without hesitation, Letty cheerfully scoops up the silver orb, activating it with her usual casual chant. The group secures the fourth magic gem with surprising ease, remarking that the enemy must have made a serious mistake. Lily quietly wonders what Ray is doing now, her expression tense and uncertain. Meanwhile, Letty urges them to chase after Alan. The storm intensifies as purple energy surges across the frozen landscape. A massive, circular magic formation collapses inward, revealing someone standing unharmed at its center. Realizing the truth, Ray panics as his black flames prove completely ineffective, unable to inflict any damage at all. Gasping for breath, Ray stares in disbelief and irritated as he mutters about the word scoop, unable to grasp what just happened. Alan stands calmly amid the chaos, holding his shovel as if nothing unusual occurred. Letty suddenly calls out to Alan, startling both him and Ray as she approaches. The princess appears triumphantly, raising her hand and announcing that the silver orb was left safely inside the tower. Seeing this, Rei freezes in stunned silence. As the group regathers, it's explained that with the caster gone, the connection collapses. Realization hits Rei hard, his eyes widening as sweat pours down his face. Looking down into the shattered ground, he finally understands the situation while the others call out to Alan in alarm. Alan calmly turns his back and starts walking away as Rei shouts after him and insists the fight isn't over. Without looking back, Alan states he has no reason to keep fighting and declares the mission complete after securing the magic gem. Alan coldly tells Rei to forget everything else and worry about his own survival. He warns that Zell will execute him for losing both the magic gem and Letty. Zell appears behind Rei and threatens him outright, ordering him to flee immediately if he values his life. Alan signals the group to act as Miner prepares a warp to Shalega, calmly stating he can go that far since he's been there before. Rei warns them not to screw with him, gritting his teeth in fury. His thoughts spiral as he demands to know why he would be the one executed. Rei displays his crushing pressure as his authority bears down. He desperately reassures himself that Letty and the magic gem must still be safe. The group abruptly realizes the danger, while others realize that they can simply steal everything back from Miner. Kazu staggers as the ground trembles beneath her, blurting out in alarm as the rumbling grows stronger. Vecna stiffens and realizes the tremor isn't an illusion. Rei raises his staff as violent mana surges, declaring this his ultimate secret art. He thrusts his power skyward, roaring his judgment as purple energy tears open the heavens. A massive vortex forms above, mana spiraling violently as the spell completes its descent. The group braces themselves as the pressure intensifies, snow and mana whipping violently around them. Letty freezes mid-realization, gripping her staff as the truth of the spell dawns on her. Panic spreads as the girls stare upward, realizing there's no way to block an attack of that scale. A blazing mass tears through the sky as Rei completes the spell and calls down a catastrophic meteor summoned toward their position. Alan looks up calmly as the looming meteorite comes into view, gauging its size without panic. He mutters that if it's this huge, shaping a massive boulder should be more than enough to deal with it. Rei stiffens in shock, realizing he is cooked. Alan raises his shovel as a glowing blue formation spreads outward, declaring that rock shaping is right up his alley. Lily watches in stunned confusion, struggling to understand what Alan is about to do. The girls tense up, their eyes sharp as they sense the danger escalating. A sharp command rings out as the power is released in an instant. A massive blue pillar erupts upward like a cannon, smashing straight into the descending meteor as Alan unleashes Shovel Wave Cannon. Rei freezes in shock, his eyes wide as fear finally breaks through his composure. Lily braces herself midair, caught off guard by the sudden turn of events. Letty's lips curl into a confident smile, her resolve fully set. She proudly declares their trump card, revealing that the one who intervened is none other than their Miner, who is the Shovel Master himself. Her eyes sharpen with focus. Several ominous, glowing symbols flare into existence, radiating a dangerous presence. A violent eruption tears through the space as the symbols trigger. Kazu lunges forward and shouts a warning, desperately calling out to the princess. Lily snaps in shock, recognizing the attack as it unfolds once more. Panic sets in as she realizes something is terribly wrong again and demands to know what's happening this time. Massive chunks of rock crash down violently, shaking the battlefield as debris rains from above. The falling fragments glow ominously. The barrage converges toward the center. Rei's eyes widen in disbelief as he senses something is off. He realizes too late that the shattered meteorite fragments have transformed, all of them turning into shovels. The girls pause in shock, while Letty beams with excitement and proudly declares this as Alan and Letty's very first joint collaboration. Their combined attack detonates violently as the Miner's meteor summoning crashes down, unleashing a devastating explosion. As the dust settles, the girls stare in disbelief and realize the enemy is now completely buried and reduced to a total shovel state. Kazu freezes and questions whether what she's seeing is real. The scene reflects clearly in her widened eyes, the impossible outcome unfolding right before her, and seeing Letty's conviction. The battlefield settles into an eerie haze as the aftermath of the shovel-filled devastation lingers in the air. Zell stares ahead as Letty stands at the center of it all, her presence radiating oddly as the situation takes a strange turn. Lily realizes that when Letty utters shovel, her thoughts directly invade Rei's mind, warping his actions in an instant. She concludes that the strange noise embedded in his technique caused that influence to manifest. Letty quietly questions whether what just occurred can even be called a shovel invocation, while sensing that the phrasing sounds strangely familiar. The thought snaps into focus as she realizes it is magic. She explains that magic originates from the four elements, requiring belief without even the slightest doubt. She continues that a mage must hear the voices of the elemental spirits and form a bond where both sides stand as equals. Only through that mutual connection, she concludes, does true magic finally take shape. Everything Lily has taught her about magical law clicks into place, as Letty's absolute devotion to the shovel perfectly aligns with that theory. The realization hits cleanly, fitting the situation exactly as intended. At the center of the shattered ground, Ray lies buried deep in a crater. Overwhelmed and broken, he mutters the word shovel. Kazu calmly acknowledges the conclusion, but admits she is asking a strange question against her better judgment. She wonders if the shovel could be something entirely different from elemental magic, possibly a spirit that doesn't derive from the four elements at all. A chilling thought follows that without anyone noticing, Letty may have already formed a bond with a shovel spirit. She considers the unsettling alternative, questioning if things might actually work in reverse. She admits she always assumed the shovel was merely some kind of unidentified attribute magic, an assumption now clearly flawed. Recalling Alan's feats such as dimensional leaps, transmutation, gravity control, and meteor-breaking power, she concludes the shovel transcends every known branch of magic. Kazu reaches a terrifying conclusion that shovel isn't a type of magic at all, but something far greater. Lily desperately wonders if magic itself is merely one aspect of the shovel, a realization she begs herself not to accept. Alan stands in silence as the thought lingers. She reflects that everything began the moment Letty met Alan. She admits the final truth that Letty's affinity for the shovel is far too strong, a tragic and undeniable fact. Kazu admits she has feared this outcome ever since Letty joined their journey. That fear hardens into certainty as the realization fully sinks in. She states that the phenomenon at the Black Iron Tower is only the beginning. She warns that what comes next will eclipse everything they have witnessed so far. Alan looks ahead calmly as she is convinced that what follows will reshape existence itself, right down to the world's core. Kazu looks forward calmly, her expression serene as her presence continues to resonate. She explains that the contact between Alan and Letty are fusing into a static state. Zell senses it clearly as Ray's mana signature completely vanishes. He questions whether Ray has died or simply exhausted all of his magic, unable to understand why, as he recalls Ray telling him about Letty's companion who was wielding an incomprehensible magic. Zell's eyes narrow, realizing that there is really someone pulling the strings,